this meeting to order. Can everybody please stand for the pledge of allegiance behind us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Adequate notice of this meeting was advertised in the Asbury Park Press in the Beacon on January 20th, 2022. By posting notice in the Forked River Post Office and the local Harbor Post Office, by filing a copy of notice with the Lacey Township Clerk as required by the Open Public Meeting Act. And there was an amendment to tonight's meeting from last Thursday that was also, last night that was also publicized for the virtual and this new meeting tonight as per required under the Open Public Meeting Act. Mr. DeGeorge, roll call, please.
Mr. Amato,
Present virtually.
Mrs. Claus,
Here.
Mr. Peters,
Present.
Mrs. McAvoy,
Present.
Mrs. Downing,
Here.
Mr. Scanlon,
Here.
Mr. Polino.
Present. Thank you. Move on to public comment, agenda items. So this public comment session is for agenda items only. An audience member wishing to make a comment shall raise his or her hand and when called upon, state their name, address, affiliation, intention to make a statement. Comment should be limited to agenda items only. Comment shall be addressed to the board president. Comment shall be made on one issue at a time. Comment shall be limited to 5 minutes. No audience member will be recognized twice until all who wish to comment have been recognized. Those that are here, we ask to come to the mic. And of course, those that are home will be using their own mic. We're going to ask first, because this is new to us, we're going to do people who are present first on the floor to give their public comments. And then we're going to go virtually for those that have questions. And I do want to add that, the board uses this public comment period as an opportunity to listen to the citizens' concerns when all issues brought to the board. Meeting will be resolved this evening. Rather, the board will, in appropriate cases, delegate the authority to investigate the matter to the superintendent or his or her designee, in this case, her designee. Okay, so I see Mrs. DeSenza. Come on down.
Regina DeSenza, Sunset Drive, Sunrise Beach. My public comment is about public comment. In my humble opinion, no one should attempt to limit public comment for a public body that is responsible for 80 million tax dollars, no matter how redundant or repetition it gets. If I could sit there through 71 meetings, the times that we had 2 to 3 hours of public comment, then so can you, especially since the January 12th meeting was virtual from the privacy of your own home. Okay, that's my public comment.
Thank you, Mr. DeSenza. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak? Not seeing any. Mr. Lytle or Mr. Merman, we are ready for you when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Polino. If there is anybody joining us virtually that would like to make a public comment on agenda items only, you may now raise your hand with the Zoom app at this time. If you're calling in via telephone, you can use *9 to do that. And we'll give you just a couple of seconds here to see if we have any public comment on agenda items only. Seeing none, Mr. Polino.
Thank you, Mr. Merman. Greatly appreciated. So for those of you who regularly attend the board meetings, we've changed. You might see that things have changed up just a bit. We've discussed this as board members, and we decided that we wanted to extend our agenda time to allow for our committee reports. This will, I feel, actually all board members feel that this offers us the opportunity to conduct our business in public, which is what it's meant. This meeting is for. So at this time, we're going to ask for our board committee reports and open discussion or dialogue if any members have questions for our chairs. And what I do ask members of the board that you keep your questions to the agenda items that were on the agenda for your meetings this past month. Okay. And I'm going to ask the chairs to keep track of your agenda items over there because I don't have all the agendas in front of me. So at this time, I'm going to start with finance.
Sure.
Mrs. McAvoy, you are our chair. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. The Finance Committee met on Tuesday, January 18th. In attendance was myself, Mr. Polino, Mr. Scanlon, Dr. Clark, and Mr. DeGeorge. We had a very lengthy meeting. We talked about the fire alarm replacement capital project. Mr. DeGeorge led a lengthy discussion on this. The first portion of the discussion centered around the most recent and pending rebidding of the project. A related resolution is going to be presented tonight to reject the bids a second time and enter into a negotiations process. The second portion of the discussion centered around the legal matter involving the original contract. We talked about the annual budget. Mr. DeGeorge provided and reviewed an initial detailed revenue projection for the operating budget. He also provided and reviewed information on the health benefits as well as the projected debt service. We decided as a facilities committee that we will have an open public budget workshop that will be scheduled for April 6th, 2022. And most likely it'll be in the high school library. We invite all the community members to come out and discuss our budget, hear from us, what new things we have in the budget, and any open conversation. So that's April 6th at 6 p.m. And we will give you more of a location as it gets closer. We discussed the food quality from food services. And I know Mr. Peters will probably also talk about it in his report. We were provided, the Finance Committee was provided with 3 options on the elementary school lunch that was offered during the day on January 18th. We agreed that the meals clearly met the nutritional requirements. We did have a few suggestions. We liked some things more than others, and we did give some suggestions to Mr. DeGeorge and Dr. Clark. The a la carte items, we're going for a tiny bit increase. And if you look in the agenda, you will see the increase of a few of the items. Some of them are 4 cents, 5 cents. I think the biggest percentage up was it the assorted yogurt or, oh, the Pirates Booty Puffs? They're going up 8 cents. Everything else is going up 4 or 5 cents. We were down, Mr. DeGeorge, did we lose a total of 12,000 last year in food services? Is that what the number was?
Yes, for the audit, yes.
Okay, per the audit. So hopefully by increasing things a nickel, and it's only a few things, hopefully we will not be in the red next year. We talked about security, and in security, we talked about Alyssa's Law. How Mr. DeGeorge provided an update on the administration's goal of recommending a valid solution to comply with Alyssa's Law. And then we also, at this point, talked about cybersecurity, but this was highly confidential information regarding the district's initiatives surrounding cybersecurity. So obviously, we cannot talk about that in public. Transportation, the transportation department managers, Mrs. Vellante and Ms. Tudaro, they've been working through staffing issues to keep the drivers behind the wheel of our school buses and our ability to maintain 100% of our routes. So I just want to compliment the transportation department for doing a terrific job and keeping all the bus routes going. Thank you so much. And I know in all 3 committees, we talked about the late buses. Starting January 30th, we will provide late buses for the Lacey Township High School, the middle school, and Mill Pond School for after-school activities. So I know the board's very excited about that we will have late buses again for the students. The 30th, January 30th? 30th. And yes, I'm glad someone clapped. We're excited also. Okay. And then we talked about remote participation at board meetings starting tonight, which is wonderful. And we talked about some policies, and Mr. Scanlon came up with a great discussion during the finance meeting. He would like our district website to provide more of a comprehensive list of legislators. So the district, the community members can look on our website and know which legislators to contact if you want to fight mask mandates, if you want to question anything. This way, we are helping you, the community members, by providing a comprehensive list. So Mr. Scanlon, thank you for that. I thought that was an awesome idea. Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask any board members if they have any discussion at all on anything that we discussed in our finance meeting.
Thank you, Ms. McAvoy. Any board
Ms.
members?
Claus?
Okay, can you explain what the Alyssa's law is? I don't know what that is.
Pat, the Alyssa's.
And then
Yes.
how are we not compliant or?
Oh,
Right. So Alyssa's law centers around the concept where a district's buildings, school buildings, have direct connection to the local police department in the event that there, God forbid, is an emergent situation. Right now, we go through a relay for a monitoring company, but the solution that we're looking at will eliminate that and will go directly to the local PD.
Okay. I have more. You don't want-
Go ahead.
Your discussion on the grant writer.
Oh, okay. Sure. So
Is that for revenue?
it could be.
Excuse me
We'll
one
talk
second,
about it.
please. You know, Mrs. Claus is all the way down the far end of the school. If you can just speak up on your.
Oh,
just-
sure.
Mr.
Or in your
Amato
mic- or in your
on.
microphone.
What's that?
If she could speak in her microphone, I think.
Yeah,
that-
'cause
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't think
sorry.
that this one could hear. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question on the grant writer and if there was a discussion on revenue, and if there is, I would
So
like to join in.
at the curriculum meeting in November, Mrs. Downing, was it? We talked about it, finance and curriculum.
This is Jan. Yeah.
Yeah.
November.
Okay, so I'm sorry I'm on my phone, but I only have this saved on my phone, so I'm not using it for private business right now. So in November, Mrs. Downing and I proposed to the curriculum committee the possibility of hiring a grant writer for the district. And I think Dr. Clark will be talking about it with everybody in the February meetings. So we basically took Tom's Rivers job description for their grant writer and their public relations person. So it would be someone with minimum 1 to 3 years experience, ability to monitor and meet income goals. So there possibly could be that the grant writer would have to bring in $100,000 through the year. It's a year-by-year job. They would work with the superintendent. It would be a full-time position. They would perform state, federal, local grants, foundations. The job would be talked about every year. So it's just an idea. I know Ms. Downing and I, we went through the job description and we presented at curriculum. And then at finance, it was just on the other, but it wasn't discussed fully at finance. So it's going to be on all the committees
Oh, nice.
in
Okay,
February.
great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, that's all,
Everybody
thank
hear
you.
that? Donna?
Yeah, I have a question on that, Ms. McAvoy. I don't understand why we're gonna put a application out to hire someone. We've had 3 local volunteers that have grant writing experience in the past have offered for free to work for the district for free to volunteer their time to help us out with that situation.
Right. And I think we discussed that in curriculum. That's wonderful if they're volunteers, but at some point they're not, a grant writer would have a deadline. We cannot tell a volunteer, you have a deadline. We cannot tell a volunteer, you have to show up 3 days a week to get the grant done. And we cannot say you have to bring in $100,000 throughout the year. With this position, they would be bringing in much more than they're worth.
Can we possibly look at then? I understand your standards and what you're quoting there. Can we possibly, if they want to volunteer for free, come in a couple hours, if they have a little more knowledge, or a little more experience with the person that we're hiring, and work with them for free of assistance? If they're offering their time for free, and we're going to make more money if they have more ideas, 3 heads together are better than 1.
They could
Well,
always.
Can we
apply-
look into possibly letting them help out?
They
our-
could always apply for this position. The way this is written up so far is that, can you hear me?
Yes.
that this person, what was it,
1 to 3 years
1 to 3
experience.
years experience
In grant writing.
in grant writing. So I don't know
Well,
who
I'm just
you're
looking at,
referring to
I'm
or
just looking
who
at guys,
or
we have
what.
volunteers for softball, we have volunteers for football, volunteers for different sports, that volunteer their time for free. If we have someone in the paid position and they can help out at all, that's all I'd like to look into.
And
If
he's-
these
Sure.
people are willing to volunteer their time and help out, let.
Yes,
so
Miss-
be it.
and
Take
Mr.
whatever we
Peters,
can.
some of this came from you. You texted me one morning and said, look at Tom's River sign. So
Yep.
I called Tom's
Yep.
River and I asked them.
I've been,
so
I've been pushing this for a while.
So it came from you. So the grant writing comes from Tom's River because we were so impressed. So after you said that, I did all the research, discussed it with Mrs. Downing,
Okay.
and this is where it evolved from.
Thank
So
you.
it'll be discussed in full at
All
all
right.
the committee
Thank you.
meetings.
Is this for the next year?
New budget, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Mhm. Exciting.
Mr. Amato, do you have anything down there? I don't know if you,
Yes, thank you. I have a question regarding the food service. The food service checkout that was done. Can you tell me who went and to what school and what date that was and what was eaten?
Sure. Mr. Amato, as board members, we're not permitted to go into schools to try out lunches. That's not a board member's job. So Dr. Clark, Mr. Zelinski, and Mr. DeGeorge brought the food into us at
Okay,
the committee meeting. So yes, we cannot go into schools because that would be us evaluating the staff. And it's just not something a board member does.
okay, very good. And can you tell me what day they went and what they ate and what the
Sure.
outcome was?
So the night that I was there, it was a chef's salad. That's all I had. Mr. Polino, what did you eat that night?
so myself and Mr. Peters devoured the taco.
No, the buffalo chicken dip.
Oh, no.
That was
That
impossible.
was Taco Tuesday. It was Mr. Scanlon, myself, had tacos with that.
You had a sandwich.
And I had a half a sandwich. Yeah, and he had the other half. And we had the chocolate milk. And so, yeah, it was pretty good.
And fruit was on each plate and the juice was on each plate and a milk.
And that policy, Mr. Amato, we had the buffalo chicken dip. We had a chef salad
And the chicken.
and the
popcorn
popcorn chicken, which I wasn't
It was,
happy with because it was processed chicken instead of full chicken, like you usually get chicken tenders at McDonald's, which I
and
don't
breakfast.
understand. But it did come with vegetables. The salad was crisp. The lunch meat in the salad was good. And Mr. Polino and I devoured the
Easy
buffalo
now.
chicken dip. It was very, very good. I was extremely impressed.
Yeah,
So,
buffalo.
pardon my novice here. I'm being the novice guy here. So Mrs. McAvoy just explained that board members can't go into the school, but you guys are telling me about food they ate. So where did they have a separate meal for you somewhere?
No, Mr. Amato, so we had a committee meeting at the district office
Okay,
and Mr. Zelinski went to the schools and
And
brought
brought
the
food here.
food to us at night. We ate it
Okay.
at night. It was
So-
heated, reheated.
being that I'm not on any committee, how do I get to taste this food?
Well, I don't want to get into it, but.
We
I'm
have to.
sure
I
if
need
you
to-
wore a
I
mask
need to
into the
evaluate too.
building, you can Try it.
Say it again?
So basically, if you're willing to come to the board office and wear your mask and go into the room, I'm sure Dr. Clark and Mr. Zelinski could arrange for a meal to be brought to you. And you could eat the meal in the room as we did, and then you could taste it.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay?
Yeah,
All right.
appreciate
Anything
that.
else, Mr. Amato?
All good here now. Thank you.
All righty, thank you. Anybody else have anything for, go ahead.
I
Mrs.
do. Mr. George, briefly, I don't want you to have to get into a big thing, but we mentioned, Donna mentioned there was a loss of approximately $12,000 in food services. And yet the students all got paid, got free food all this year, last year, correct? And so we got funding from the state for that, correct?
Mhm.
So can you explain why there's such a deficit?
Sure. Yes. Meal counts were not high, as high last year. And again, this $12,000 loss was through June 30th, the 12 months ended June 30th. So the seamless summer option where the free lunch was not available to everyone. We had some time out of school. Remember, schools were closed for a little bit, which hurts our meal counts. So meal counts are up significantly this year.
Now.
And then, of course, you have to factor in on a GAAP basis, the depreciation and other non-operating costs that trickle into the profit and loss statement. So it's really largely, though, meal counts. They were not quite as high as we hoped they would be, but they're significantly higher this year.
Okay. But nobody pays this year,
Nobody pays, no, not at
No.
all.
and the state's not reimbursing to cover that cost.
They are
We're not
reimbursing us
covering enough money to cover that cost.
last year,
Okay.
right.
All right.
But they do pay for à la carte.
Yes.
Yes,
yes,
they pay
yes,
for
I remember
all.
a la carte was not really offered too much last year
Right.
either because the schools were closed and we had a little bit of a different meal delivery system where kids were eating in the classrooms largely last year. This
Right.
year, it's a lot better set up. for us.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Mr.
if I may, Mrs. McAvoy, on those price increases for basically it's on the snack menu.
Yes,
If I remember correctly, we had to raise those prices because we were actually charging less than we pay for them in some cases.
yes.
So I think it's important that the public know that we're not just raising the prices willy-nilly. It's actually to cover the cost of what we're buying.
Right. There was a few of the items on the list, item number 11, that we were charging under for the food cost of it. Thank
Right.
you. Yes.
Maybe up to half of those items, we were charging a sales price, which was less than we were paying to purchase the item.
Right. And then we've only brought them up to a penny or two above our.
That's it.
purchase
Yes.
price. I just thought it was important to point that
Thank
out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, Mr. Peters, you want to give us policy?
Sure. First, I'd like the public to know that all our policies are on our website. Any policy whatsoever, you go to lisaschools.org, you can see our policies on there. And one of the tabs, I'm not sure exactly what it is. They are available. You can read them. We had a meeting at 4:30 on January 19th. Myself, Mr. Polino filled it as an alternative, and Ms. Claus. The first discussion we talked about was policy 2624. Now, a while back, folks, I don't know if everybody knows or not, but we have that policy is it's a safety net. And what it is it means that a student cannot get below a 60 the first half of the year on one of the grades for their classes. And the reason we passed that, Ms. Claus and I passed that last year with, who else? was
Oh, I
with us?
voted against it.
I'm sorry.
I was the only one.
Right, okay, I'm sorry. But we passed that, and what it was is, it's so a student, if they come in and do absolutely nothing, or they're having a problem at home, or their other situation is, and they get a 20 the first marking period, they're really, really, really gonna struggle if they want to turn around to come back later on in the year and make that grade a passing grade at the end of the year. It's a horrible debt to try to make up if you get a 20 the first semester, and then trying to make that back up is unbelievable hard to pass. So we passed a policy regarding a safety net that they couldn't get below a 60, at least gives them a chance. We gave them a little bit of some swing pads there. And our biggest concern was how many students were going to take advantage of it. And we brought that concern to Mr. Linsky, and he came back with a report for us for the first part of it. And at the high school, 9% of the students used that safety net. At the middle school, 6% of the students used that safety net. Now, we're going to continue to monitor this. We don't want to be to the point where, hey, we're giving stuff for free. We want to be to the point where you come in, you need to earn it. So we're going to see where it's at, keep an eye on it, and monitor it. We also talked about curriculum content. 2200, Dr. Clark led a discussion about the revision of 2200, informed the committee of the policy, discuss a further future with Mr. Phil McCastro and Strauss Esme. Strauss Esme is our policy attorney. That's all they do is policies throughout the state of New Jersey. And they make recommendations, we make changes, and we follow what has to happen, what they come through, what's sent to them from the state. We talked about public participation in board meetings. Dr. Clark, that was policy 0167. Dr. Clark provided an overview of proposed changes to the policy placed on February agenda, first read, reviewed by Strauss Essay. We also discussed duties of a board president or vice president. We talked about the update and location of the January 20 meeting, which obviously is the middle school. We also discussed about remote participation, which we're doing now, and I'm thanking the public for coming in wearing masks so this meeting could take place tonight. And that was about it. Any questions on the policy meeting from the board?
I have a
Where's-
question.
Where's me?
I'm sorry, Mr. Motto, Ms. Claus had her finger up over here. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure, that's
I think we have two, aren't we doing a first read for the, both policies that we talked about tonight? I don't see it on the agenda. Did I miss it?
Which one?
I thought we were putting on,
We had discussed.
No, we tabled them.
no, hold on. The public participation in board meetings, I thought we were adding for a first read,
Yeah.
and the
so
other one.
Mr. Nicastro is reviewing policy 0167.
Then we're gonna let the attorney review it.
Oh, so
Before
we have
went-
no first reads at all?
No
No.
first read.
No.
Oh, okay.
We wanted the attorney to review that before we did a brief.
Okay, and then I would also like to add we did have a lengthy discussion on the grading system, and Mr. Zelinski is going to come back to the next meeting with some information. We kind of wanted to get like a deeper dive into, what is happening to the kids that were kind of pushing along. There was 118, I believe, high school students that we allowed to use the safety net. So he's going to talk to guidance and see, what did we do for these students? Did we ask for the parents to come in, things like that? For even Ocean County schools, what other schools in the area are using the safety net, if any? Just a deeper look into, what we can do to help the kids so we don't need to use the safety net. So,
If I can add to that, so although the safety net is a policy, I feel that this is largely a curriculum item. So I'm going to ask that the curriculum chair, Mrs. Downing, be in contact with Mr. Zelinski and get all that information. And it's going to be on next month's agenda for all the committees.
Yeah.
But I know the curriculum, Mrs. Downing is going to take heed to this and
Yeah.
she's going to be in charge of.
We've already had some discussion.
Great. Thank you,
Okay.
Mrs. Downing.
Yeah.
Mr. Ramada, you had something?
Yes, please. Thank you. On January 19th, Skip said he had a meeting with the policy team, and I got a text message earlier that day from Skip asking me if I had anything that I wanted to add to the policy conversation. At 1:40 PM, I sent Skip an email asking to consider policy 0155, which states that each board member, when elected, should or presently on board should be assigned to a committee. He needed that before 4:30. I got it to him at 1:40. Nothing was done about it. I asked him too early today, right before the meeting, if there was any reconsideration about discussing that. So I'd like to know where we are with that and when discussions will start on that one.
Unfortunately, Mr. Amato, yes, you did email me at 1:40 in the afternoon, but also I have a career. I'm also a school teacher. I don't get out of school till 3:30. My apologies. And by the time I got to the meeting, I did not check my mail on that. But I can guarantee you that'll be brought up in next discussion, next policy meeting.
Well, and I just want to come back, and I'm not trying to be confrontational here, but if you ask me for something and you have a meeting at 4:30, wouldn't you look at your email to see if there was anything in there?
Unfortunately, I did not have a chance to do that.
Okay, all right. So let me know what that discussion's like the next time you have a meeting.
Sure, we'll be discussing it next time at the board meeting
Okay, thanks.
No, it'll be at the committee meeting.
or committee meeting. I'm
So
sorry.
this is something that'll be on the
We'll
as
put
an
it on the
item
agenda for next committee meeting.
for committee, which will go to the others for other committees. Questions on that end?
I'm
No.
good then.
Anything else, Mr. Motter? You good?
Very good, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Peters, you're done?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Are we holding any discussion on the safety net concept until a later date?
If you
Well,
have
do
any
you have any
questions
questions?
now,
I don't
let's
have any
discuss it. We
questions,
can
but
present it to the attorney.
I just know, okay, well, that's what I mean. So we're not.
No, you can, if you have a discussion, let's talk about
Oh,
it.
no, I just have an opinion about it.
Well, go ahead.
And basically, it's that if we were in a letter grade situation, and a student got an F the first marking period, which would cover 0 through 60, he could bring that up with a C the next marking period. So I think the safety net is artificial. in that the number, I think the number grade system creates a problem that doesn't exist in other districts that are on a letter grade system, and it puts our students at a disadvantage. And I didn't want to go past the safety net concept without getting my 2 cents in that I think it's a
Can I
necessity.
comment on that?
Yeah.
So we did change last year. We used to be 92 to 100, correct? And I don't know the exact numbers, but I know for an A it was 92 to 100. And colleges and other districts are not on that same platform. We did change our grading number system last year, 70 to an 80, 80 to an, and to even numbers in that point there. So we actually did change our grading policy last year to match colleges, because that's how they operate. And that's what we're trying to prepare our students for. And we also match it for other schools in the districts. So last year in Lacey, we needed a 92 for an A, not a 90.
My point is that if a student comes up with a 52,
Right?
okay,
They get a
that's
60,
an F.
but
That's an F.
they get a 60.
Doesn't matter what time of the year it is. In other districts, that's an F. When I was teaching, I was in an A through F system.
Right?
And if you had the proverbial student who did nothing for whatever reason, you gave him an F. And the incentive was, you can start doing something and you can get that up, no matter how bad. it
I
was,
think-
No matter what time of the year it was.
Ms. Scanlon, I don't
That's
think
all.
you're
I just
understanding. The
just-
student's still getting an F
Right.
because you need to get a 70 or above for a D.
But somewhere the 60 exists.
Right, but they got the 60, that's an F.
Okay, well, yeah.
If they get a 68, that's still an F.
Right, so what I suggest here, Mr. Scanlon, put your concepts down on paper and get it to Mrs. Downing. And
Yeah,
then,
okay.
and then.
Right.
And then.
I was defending the safety net.
No, I understand, but if you, whatever, how you want to put it down.
Right.
Right, we just didn't want a student getting a 10 and
Yeah.
in one assignment, and then now
Right.
there's no way they could possibly pass the assignment.
Can
Alright.
I say something? Ed, the reason why this keeps coming up, well, not coming up, but
It keeps coming up because Ms. Claus keeps bringing.
because
it
I
up.
keep bringing it up, I'm sorry.
That's why it keeps coming
It
up.
does. So my concern is that we are pushing our kids along, and it might not be the case for all students, but we have multiple students that are failing multiple classes that we are giving them 60s when they should probably getting a 20. So to me, if you look at, unfortunately, we have a downward trend of our ratings, our ranking. And now I believe we're at like 3 and change out of 400 schools in New Jersey. So what can we do to hold these kids, parents, teachers, administration, board members accountable? And to me, it's not passing them along. I don't think it's working because we are giving these kids a grade that they don't deserve, number one. And I think it reflects in our math and English scores. We're 40-something% proficient and we're in English, and we're 20-something% efficient in math. And I feel that's part of it. So
Right, and so that's why we're spending.
that was our last,
That's why we're spending this year collecting the data, analyzing the
Right.
data. If it's not working, certainly we're not going to
Right.
continue doing something that's not working.
Right.
But if we find after our year of analyzation that it's
Right.
working, then it's working.
so right. So
I'd like-
it's,
So I think it's important.
we're
to
not
point
voting
out.
on it today
Right.
or next
I'd like to
month.
add one more thing to that. That's only for the first semester.
For
It's not-
each, correct, but then there's 2 semesters.
Right,
So
it's only for the first,
right,
not the
so-
second. If you get a 10 the second semester, you get what you earned, you get a 10.
right. And I'm not saying for students, if there's like a death in the family or if there's something significant that policy should apply. I believe it should. But how many students do we have out of the high school students, 118, that are not even doing their homework? And those are the kids that I feel like we really need to go after and make them accountable. It's only going to help them. They need to learn the material. So that's,
If I
I
could-
feel strongly about this.
If I could, so the way I look at that policy when we vote on it is, so if you have a child that no matter what you try to do to help this child, and they're
Yep.
just indignant to the fact that they don't want to do anything. So whether they get a 0 or they get a 60, an F, you're probably not going to see them doing any more than what the second semester did the first semester. So whether they have that 20, that 0, or the 60, it's still an F. The next semester, it might be an F again. So really, what's the difference on what number we're giving them? It just benefits those children that had that down moment during the first semester So rather, and we look at them and we help them, and it's easier to pull them up from a 60 and get them back to where they are than a 20. So that's the way I looked at it. Okay, so if we can move on to the next thing, I appreciate that. Mrs. Downing, go ahead, you curriculum chair.
Okay, so we had a curriculum meeting, Mrs. McAvoy, Mr. Polino, Dr. Clark, Mr. Zelinski, and myself were in attendance. The first thing we discussed was the Start Strong assessment results. They're going to be reported next month at the February meeting. Mr. Zelinski is working on a presentation for that. Now, these results are based on the Start Strong test that the children took in the beginning of the year. I think it was October. It was a 45-minute to 60-minute assessment in ELA, language arts, math, and science. And this assessment shall only apply to the 2020-2021 school year, and it was used in lieu of the New Jersey student learning assessments. So results are going home. Some of you may already have your results. And some, Mr. Zelinski, is the high school, do they have theirs yet?
They should. I think the only building that's yet to be mailed this week is Mill Pond.
Mill Pond, okay. So all the other schools, you should have the results. If you don't, you can call your school's guidance counselor and find out where they are. This summer coming up, the district will be revising the curriculum in all subjects based on the New Jersey student learning standards. Money is budgeted for this, and the standards which dictate what students are expected to learn at specific grade levels and bands are the frameworks that this curriculum will be based on. We were given 3 proposals for 3 new courses at the high school and middle school. The first one is a computer science discoveries. It was proposed by Mr. Cashin. This course will teach the fundamentals of computer science and basic programming. It's an introductory computer science course. It will be a 5-credit course in grades 9 through 12 as an elective. Introduction to Python is also in grades 9 through 12, also an elective. And this is an introduction to Python, which will teach the foundations of computer science and basic programming. And once they complete this course, they will have learned material equivalent to a semester college introductory course in computer science. And the third one, introduced by Karen Hobson and Margaret Malloy, was a computer science fundamentals. This is for our 7th and 8th graders at the middle school. This course will teach the foundations of computer science and basic programming with emphasis on the development of problem-solving skills. This will include computational and logical thinking. As I said, it's going to be a rotator course at the middle school. Now, computer science is part of the New Jersey's student learning standards for computer science and design thinking. We also discussed block scheduling and listened to some of the concerns that have come up about AP schedules. And we're hoping that following the recommendations, the AP classes will do A/B blocks. That way they will have be able to work all year long on to bring up their AP class test scores. Because right now, if a student has, let's say, biology, AP biology in the fall and doesn't take it in the spring, and then they take the AP test in the spring, they may have forgotten a lot what they learned in the fall. So we're hoping to go A/B schedule. We also discussed the parent survey that went out prior to the holidays, and that survey was sent out again. It was sent out again the second time, right? Hopefully, a lot of our parents have been able to go on and give us some feedback. Donna already stole my thunder to happy report that the late buses will be restored for the high school, middle school, and Mill Pond, and that's going to enable more after-school participation. On behalf of this board, I want to thank Maria Valenti and Nico Tadaro, I hope I said their names right, who now manage our transportation department, for the great work pulling this together. I know it wasn't an easy job, and money to make this work came from savings created by transporting certain students ourselves versus paying a contractor Chapter to do that. So thank you, Mr. George, for your work on that as well. Mr. Zelinski updated us on the revisions and revamping of our guidance department at the high school. This is an ongoing project. The website is updated with current information on guidance staff, as well as the creation of its own college and career readiness section, updating the college university contacts, updating brochures and materials that can be helpful to our students, the creation of junior Naviance meeting presentation, parent and student versions to ensure that our students have access and know how to navigate it. And currently they are working on scheduling for in-school student presentations and an evening parent meeting. They're planning a financial aid event to inform parents and looking into offering a night for individual or small group meetings to provide more personalized help. I remember that as a parent going through that. It's nice to have help. And I'd like to also welcome our new guidance counselor, Mrs. Farnkoff. She's our new career guidance counselor. So please go on the website, check out the guidance section and see the changes that are in place or going to be in place. Any questions?
Dr. Clark.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but the parent survey
Yes.
is going to go out on Friday. So I have it in my comments.
Oh,
and I
okay.
wanted to talk
So I
about
stole
it.
your thunder then.
Yeah, so it's going out tomorrow morning,
Okay,
but I'll talk about that in my.
okay. Thank you.
Before anybody-
questions?
Yeah, before anybody else jumps in, Mr. DeGeorge, the buses, the late buses at the high school, there's one for each school, correct? Or is there one bus going to all three schools, middle?
It's for each, well, they rotate, but there are a number of buses.
Okay, there's a number of buses, because
we
I
hired
did have a
two
parent
buses.
ask me if it's going to be one bus going to the school, all three schools, or they're going to be separate. That's,
They're different times, but they have a number of buses.
okay, thank you. We'll start that. No, we're going to start. Yo, I'm only kidding. Start down the left end here. You guys down this end have anything?
No, I'm good, thank you.
You're good. Mr. Mono, you have anything?
I have a quick question. I may have, maybe I didn't hear it. Thank you for your update, Mrs. Downing. In regards to introduction to Python, I know that's a computer coding course. Did you say that that was a college credit course?
I
No.
said it was an elective. Mr.
Okay,
Zelinski,
okay,
go ahead.
thank you. All
Yeah,
right.
Mr. Amato, it's probably not a college level course. It's probably more of an introductory course to expand our
Well,
computer science offerings.
Okay, yeah, I thought with the college code, I mean, writing codes and stuff like that would just have a little bit more. weight
We
on
have
it.
AP computer science at the high school now that is a college level course.
Outstanding, thank you. That's it.
Anything
for me.
else? Okay, Mr. Scanlon, Mr. Peters? He's good. I'm sorry.
No, it's hard to hear.
Go ahead.
Me?
Go ahead.
I actually wanted to thank you for having this meeting extended and more open communication, and I just wanted to thank you
Well,
for
thank
that,
you. But
Frank.
you know, the thanks goes to the whole board because, you know, everybody really agreed on this and they were
Okay.
all for this, but thank
That's
you. Mrs. McAvoy, do you have anything?
I was at the meeting now.
All right,
Thank you.
okay,
I'm
just to make sure in case something else came up. Okay, so before we move on, and yes, to add on Mrs. Claude, so I want to thank the board members for really getting involved in dialogue, and I want to thank my committee chairs because I told them in the beginning of the year, when I was going to get sworn in, that I really wanted them to participate more and take more of control of the committees. And I put more on them to really get involved and to initiate dialogue and have the board to talk in public. And it's a lot more work. And for those that don't understand, we spend hours in committee meetings. You know, I think the curriculum meeting was like 3 hours the other night, and policy was like 2 hours. We spend a lot of time in these meetings, so they have to go back and take everything that we spoke about and put it down. They spend more time doing that. And I thank my committee chairs, Mr. Peters, Mrs. Downing, and Mrs. McAvoy for doing that. And the board members for allowing me to expand on this new dialogue thing. So with that, we're going to go to board comments at this point. Does anybody have anything?
No, not at this time.
Anybody? Nobody?
No,
Okay. Dr. Clark, you have anything now?
not right now.
Okay. Mr. DeGeorge?
Oh, then for a private session, sir? Okay. Be it resolved that a private session be convened for the purpose of discussing confidential student matters, HIB, confidential legal matters, including but not limited to the current caseload. The subject matter of these discussions will be disclosed to the public when the reason for confidentiality subsides. The length of the private session is estimated to be about 45 minutes or so, after which the board shall reconvene and proceed with business. Action may be taken. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion, Peter?
Mr. Peters, I'll give you the second. I think Mrs.
Second.
McAvoy. I can McAvoy jump in first. All right, private session in the media.
Okay, we're adjourning private session. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to resume our meeting. At this point, we don't have our student reps, right?
We do not.
No, is there anybody that's going to say anything? Did they say anything or?
No, they're gonna do a double report at the next meeting.
Okay, great. All right, report of superintendent, Dr. Clark.
Okay, thank you, Board President Polino. Welcome to our January board meeting. I hope everybody is staying warm. This whole week is supposed to be frigid, so chilly in here. But the days are getting longer, 1 minute each day, so. Mr. Zelinski just.
Dr. Clark, I'm sorry, we cannot hear you.
Okay, I will talk a little louder. Mr. Zelinski just commented that our student reps are not here this evening, so they will be double reporting next month. So they will join us for our February meeting. I'm going to jump right to our two student artists, as I do every month. So Caitlin Woods is a fourth grade student at Lenoka Harbor Elementary. She designed the cover of our board agenda. And Aubrey Concalves, a fourth grade student also at Lenoka Harbor School, designed the cover of the superintendent's report. As always, their artwork will join the other artwork that is hanging in the board office. And we thank both Caitlin and Aubrey. Also next month, we are going to be recognizing our January and February seniors of the month, along with our staff members of the month, our Lacey Minute. And we will be doing that on February 17th, which is the day of our board meeting, but we're going to do that at 5 o'clock. And we haven't determined a location yet, but we will be sure to get that information out to our school community. During our agenda meeting, Mrs. Downing commented about a parent survey that we sent out just prior to the holiday break. And while we did receive a good response from our school community, I still believe that we can get some more feedback. I just want to talk a little bit about what the purpose of that survey is. And again, tomorrow morning when the survey goes out, there will be an explanation. But there has been a lot of discussion about federal funds that not only the Lacey Township School District has received, but many other school districts throughout New Jersey. And that is to support student needs as it relates to the COVID pandemic. There are 3 specific areas in which the district is required to spend the money. That is enrichment activities, beyond the school day activities, and mental health support. So the district wants to collaborate with our school community to create student programs that fit those needs, including, but not limited to, after-school academic assistance, additional counseling availability, summer enrichment programs, summer academic programs, and parent workshops. So the purpose of the survey is to seek parent input on where those needs are, what those needs are. And we are looking for suggestions to help us prioritize those areas of need. So I'm asking our parents to take a few moments to complete that survey. We will leave it open for about 2 weeks. And again, I will send out an email tomorrow. It will be posted on our website. And I'll probably send another reminder midway through. And we will report those results at our February board meeting. So I thank you in advance to all of our families. The more feedback we get, the better programs we can put in place. All right, at this time, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Mr. Zelinski. He is going to report on our school self-assessments for harassment, intimidation, and bullying. We are required by the Department of Education to report on this annually. So Mr. Zelinski is going to do that. And then Mr. Zelinski, if you can update us on the new health and safety guidance. It's kind of create, we keep talking about the fact that it keeps changing. And the last time I asked Mr. Zelinski to do this, we had an update. And since then, we've received another update. And so we post those updates on our website, but I'm just gonna ask Mr. Zelinski to talk it through.
Okay, so I'll do both, and just bear with me. Our HIB grades report is a prepared statement as required by the Harassment, Intimidation, and Bullying, Anti-Bullying Act passed by the state of New Jersey many years ago. Tonight, I'll be reporting the results of the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act District and School Self-Assessments. For reference, the Anti-Bullying Rights Act is also referred to as the ABR. At the end of the 2020-2021 school year, the New Jersey Department of Education directed all schools through its school safety teams to assess their programs in the implementation of the ABR based on 8 core elements. These elements included an assessment of how well we think we did in delivering harassment, intimidation, and bullying HIB programs, otherwise known as, and approaches, as well as we provided training for all school personnel, how well we prepared curriculum and instruction related to HIB awareness and prevention, and how well we implemented HIB investigation procedures. Tonight, I'm going to provide the public with an overview of our HIB grades reports. Once the NJDOE certifies our scores, the complete report will post it on our website under the school Safe Schools tab. The maximum number of points that each school can get is a 78, and the district score is an average of all those scores. The high school scored 75 out of 78 and met all the requirements. Middle school received a score of 72 out of 78 and met all the requirements. Mill Pond Elementary received a score of 72 out of 78 and met all requirements. Lenoka Harbor Elementary received a score of 74 out of 78, met all requirements. Forked River Elementary received a score of 73 out of 78 and met all requirements. Cedar Creek Elementary received a score of 75 out of 78 and met all requirements. Finally, the district's overall score was a 74 out of 78, meeting all the requirements of the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act. Each school will differ from the other, as one consistent score would not be viewed as truly a reflection of self-assessment. As we go through that, our scores here in Lacey are consistently above the average, and attributed to the fact that we do work very hard at our HIB programs, it's a big task that we take very seriously here in Lacey. So that's the required report that we have to do once a year, and again, we'll post that after the NJDOE accepts our scores. Okay, I'll do a brief update on January 12th, and slightly updated after that again. The New Jersey Department of Health directed all this. What we always follow is the K-12 health recommendation guidance, which becomes, I guess, sort of the rule book of how we're dealing with the pandemic and our response to COVID-19 in our schools. A lot of parents, and I sent letters home to all of our parents last week or maybe even the week before. We continue to modify our quarantine and isolation timeframes. The New Jersey brought us in line with the CDC. So now many parents, if you have to deal with this, or if you're reading up on this, we follow a 5-day isolation and quarantine rule, which is a huge change from the beginning of the pandemic, where we were on a 14-day isolation and quarantine rule. So the quarantine and isolation times have gotten a lot shorter. It's brought our kids back to school a lot quicker. You know, we're really working hard to make sure that everybody remains in person. Outbreaks still occur. We do have several outbreaks going on in our buildings. Outbreaks are defined as 3 or more cases that aren't linked directly to each other, but might be linked to classroom contact, might be linked to bus contact in some cases. So you will at home may still feel some of these outbreaks where it's not necessarily everybody gets sick, but that we have to send everybody home for any given class because we don't want everybody to get sick. So that's still occurring in a couple of our buildings. Really as a result of the Omicron variant, we are seeing it filter through our community as well. The CDC and the state of New Jersey also updated information on vaccinations and how vaccinated people now have to get their booster shots in order to stay out of a quarantine or an isolation. And that kicks in February 1st. Okay, so it hasn't kicked in yet. Even students who have their vaccine shots 12 and older have to get their boosters when they're eligible. They're not all eligible right away. I think it's about a 5 or 6 month wait, especially when they have the Pfizer, the Moderna. J&J is a little quicker, but I think our younger students don't have the J&J. I think that's mostly for the older adults. And we work with each family individually. When they let us know they're vaccinated, we look at the timeframes and make sure that they have to isolate or quarantine as it goes through the system. So if you watch our numbers, we do post our numbers every week. I update them every Friday. You can see exactly how many positive cases we've had in every building over the course of the week. I've altered those timeframes. It used to be every 14 days. We will look back now. I do every 5 days. So you really see a real running score of how the buildings are doing. And I'm happy to report it has come down from post Christmas break or holiday break. And that's the whole nation seeing that as well. Okay, so that's the quick update. That's a quick version.
Thank you, Mr. Zelinski, and I'm sure we'll be updating that as things change over the next days, weeks, and months as we move into spring.
That's very likely.
All right, and then the last thing I have is Mr. DeGeorge and I spoke today, and I've asked him to provide us with an update on Oprah, specifically what an Oprah is and what an Oprah is not.
All right, thank you, Dr. Clark. For the benefit of those who have not heard of Oprah, it stands for the Open Public Records Act. It means pretty much that any member of the public can request from the custodian of records, which is me, records. And that's important because we get a number of Oprah requests throughout the year. And we're able to provide the records that are requested in most of the cases. But recently there have been some requests that are more for information or questions that seek answers. That is not what the Open Public Records Act is about. So I wanted to make that very clear. We're very willing to disclose records, but we can't use that platform to answer questions. We can't use that platform to provide information which is not contained in an official record of our district. And the best example that I give typically of a record is an invoice to a specific vendor for a specific time or date. Another is an email between person A and person B in a specific range of dates with a specific subject. Those are good examples of, and most frequently requested types of Oprah items. So to dovetail on what Dr. Clark spoke about, and it's a great way for me to say this, there have been some requests for surrounding the Esser grant funds, which Dr. Clark alluded to in part in her comments. Of course, we're going to talk about this in detail at the March public meeting on the tentative budget adoption. But if there's time for me to do that at the February meeting, I'm going to go into detail on the various types of Esser grant money, where it comes from, what it's allocated to be used on. In this way, I think maybe we would have some better way to explain to everyone out there outside of the Oprah environment what those funds are being given to us for and what we're using them for. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, thank you for that opportunity.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. DeGeorge. Mr. Polino, that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Dr. Clark, Mr. Zelinski, and Mr. DeGeorge. Okay, this time we're going to open the floor for public comments. The board uses the public comment period as an opportunity to listen to citizens' concerns, but not all issues brought to a board meeting will be resolved this evening. Rather, the board will, in appropriate cases, delegate the authority to investigate the matter to the superintendent or her designee. An audience member wishing to make a comment shall raise his or her hand, and when called upon, state their name, address, or affiliation, and intention to make a statement. Comment shall be addressed to the board president. Comment shall be made on one issue at a time. Comment shall be limited to 5 minutes, and no audience member shall be recognized twice until all who have wished to comment have been recognized once. So at this time, we're going to start with the people on the floor, and then we'll go to virtual. Mrs. DeSenza.
Good evening again, Regina DeSenza, Sunset Drive, Sunrise Beach. A while ago, Mrs. McAvoy and I had a conversation about the random student drug testing. Is that still on hold? Did we forget? Did it get down the bottom of the pile again? It's been over 18 months since we had any type of information about the random student drug testing program. And I think for the amount of money we pay for it, the public and the parents are entitled to know those numbers. The other thing is, in our policy for the random student drug testing, and Mr. Peters, you could probably put this on your policy agenda. There is nothing in that policy that states when, if, or how the public, the parents get, and even the board get information on the random student drug testing. I think at the very least, every 6 months, that should be known. Anybody write it down? Let's have something for next month. Okay, that's something I've been asking about, and this has been ongoing for the whole 6 years or whatever, that we've had that policy, that instead of the information being given to us voluntarily, a board member has always had to ask for it. The next item is about expenses. I review the bills and claims report quite extensively, and I noticed the dental charges this month were $46,162. Then I saw the prescription plan for Benecard, $306,894. And lo and behold, I looked and looked and looked. The health care expenses are not added to the bills and claims report yet. I have been asking about that for nearly 2 years. I understand that the healthcare expenses are paid electronically, therefore a check is not generated and it's not coming up on the bills and claims report. But I was told months ago that there was going to be a way to put the health care expenses on the bills and claims report. Now, this is a bill that belongs on the agenda, and month after month, the cost remains a mystery to the public. I myself, as a board member, never got the number unless I asked for it. And I'd like to thank Sharon Sylvia very much for providing it to me many, many times. And I hate to say it, but if it's not on the agenda, it's not transparent. And this is one of the board's biggest expenses. Everybody write it down, because you know I'm going to be asking about it again next month. All right, next item. I hope everybody's starting to read this, the AFR. I see it's on the agenda tonight for approval. I just want to make mention that the unallocated benefits is now finally down to 16.4 million. This is money that comes right off the top of the budget every year and can't be touched. It's the unused sick and vacation payouts, and at least it's down from the 18 million that it used to be. So I hope everyone's reading the reports on their CAFR. Now, this just in from a parent. I was just informed that in order to set up this middle school cafeteria last Thursday night, 650 students ate lunch in their classrooms last Thursday. There's got to be a higher exposure rate in the classroom. The kids are closer together and they're eating without their masks. So how come the health and safety of the students wasn't a priority last Thursday? Does anyone know about that? That all the kids ate in their classroom last Thursday while this room was set up? I mean, does it really take that long? I don't know. I'm just putting it out there because the parent asked me to. Thank you.
Mr. Senza,
Wait, Mr. Peters?
Yes, sir.
can you just shoot me an email on specifics, what you're
Mr.
looking for
Peters?
in that policy, please, regarding,
The frequency of the report of
can you
random.
just shoot
student
me an
drug-
email, please?
Mr. Peters,
All right.
please don't address, we'll have that's why something else.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Senza. And I wrote this stuff down and I will look into it. And, I'll address some of this stuff. Okay, thank you, Mr. Senza. Anybody else in the public here or other public? Okay. All right, thank you. So, Mr. Lytle, we are ready for public comment on virtual.
All right, thank you, Mr. Polino. Anyone who would like to comment at this time is instructed to virtually raise your hand using the Zoom app or dial *9 if you're calling in via telephone. Your Zoom app does need to be updated to at least 5.8 to speak. You'll be called to unmute your microphone and speak in turn. Okay, so we'll start with Richard B. Please make sure to state your name and address for the record. Unmute your microphone and begin your public comment.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
You can. Okay, very good. I just want to make
Sure.
sure.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, Richard Bitnick, Forked River. Last August, after careful thought and consideration, I decided I must speak out about the masking of children in the Lacey Township School District on moral grounds that it is unconstitutional to prevent anyone from breathing fresh air, a God-given right. Since this whole masking fiasco started, many things have become blatantly clear. The current board has no intention of protecting those God-given rights and seems not to care about the implications of their harsh decisions on the student body, such as masking the children and making them into emotional and mental cripples. You wouldn't need to spend money on mental health if you were not torturing the students with your harsh masking. For months, many of us have been coming to meetings wanting to exercise our God-given right to breathe fresh air while fighting for the children to go to school maskless if they so choose. Recent revelations have come about that the torturous past several months could have been avoided, but this board chose not to. According to your own bylaws, the board meeting held in person shall not prohibit members of the public from attending in person. That one is self-explanatory and has not been followed repeatedly. 2, if during a declared emergency, the board holds a physical meeting in a location where pursuant to state or federal guidelines meant to mitigate the risk of a contagious infection, the declared emergency necessitates capacity restrictions, reducing the number of individuals that can be present in the meeting room to an amount below that reasonably expected for the public meeting by the board. The board must either hold the public meeting at another location with adequate capacity for the reasonably expected attendance by the public, or hold the public meeting as both an in-person meeting and a remote public meeting. As set forth at NJAC 5:39-1, no in-person meeting shall proceed if the room capacity does not permit any member of the public to attend. The restrictions handed down by the governor due to the declared emergency have limited the capacity for maskless people to 0. With the exception of those who cannot wear a mask. This board has had an obligation this entire time to make it possible for maskless parents and residents to participate in BOE meetings, and has failed to do so. Not only are you permitted to hold meetings off school grounds, you are obligated to do so. If you refuse, which you have, you are obligated to hold the meeting both in person and virtual simultaneously. You have not done that either. Along with violating your own bylaws, you have also violated the executive order by not allowing those who cannot wear a mask to not wear a mask. That has always been in the executive order. Sadly, you have put members of the public in the most horrendous situation by not following your own bylaws. I find it hard to believe that members of this body did not know that these were the rules that govern you, since these bylaws were updated in November 2020. So it leads everyone to believe that you intentionally and willfully broke your own laws, which is a dereliction of duty. You have totally lost any confidence you had left by these recent revelations. I do not believe it will be possible for this board to continue, as everything that you do and say will now be questioned, and a continuing eroding of public trust will lead to a complete breakdown of the board's ability to run the schools it has been charged to maintain. It would be best for all at this point if this board resigned, except for Mr. O'Malley.
Sure.
There is absolutely no excuse for what you have done, and the recent happenings to private citizens who were charged with offenses could have all been avoided. Now that this revelation has become public, because of the dutiful research of Lorraine Zokolowski, you are now going to abide by your own bylaws. Sorry, it's all a little too late. The damage has already been done. You can either allow all to attend the school, or you can provide an off-site location for the February 2022 meeting and beyond, so all can be included and welcomed free from harassment, intimidation, and bullying. It is our constitutional right to peacefully assemble, and the masses will be back in person for the February meeting. On another note, several individuals have requested Oprah requests dealing with the Esser funds the district received. Mr. DeGeorge's responses have been that they are too vague. To be clear, Mr. DeGeorge, what the individuals want is this: the exact amount of Esser funds received by the district from January 1, 2020 through January 24th, 2022. They also want a full financial accounting of how those funds have been spent and what is the current balance left of those funds. Is that clear enough for you? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bidnick. So notes were taken, and I'm sure Mr. DeGeorge will look into these Oprah requests. And I know that Oprah requests have to be pretty specific on what they're being asked. So we'll look into that. And as far as the meetings, we're just starting our virtual, so I think we're on the right path to allow people who choose not to wear masks to do virtual. So we're good with that. Who's next, Mr. Merman?
All right, Anne Marie L., please unmute your microphone, state your name and address for the record, and begin your public comment.
Anne-Marie Leiter, The Woods, Bamber. I had something written. I don't normally write before I speak. Normally I just shoot from the hip. I have this little thing written down that I want to say, but in listening to the meeting, I just have a few things to say before I go into my little prepared speech. So in looking at the minutes from the, the January 12th meeting, in the item K, public comments, there's no mention anywhere of the public's repeated shock over Mr. Polino not appointing Mr. Armato to any of the committees. So I don't know if that was left out or not. Although, Mr. Polino, thank you for that, because now Mr. Armato can ask questions for the committees that he's not in, which is none of them. And I was very happy to hear tonight the committees actually openly talking about what they're doing. With that, regarding the food quality, it's nice that you all had your sample. And if you could see me in person, you would see I'm using air quotes, sample of the food from the schools, which is complete horse manure. You guys had a catered dinner. Who are you kidding? So I would like to volunteer to do whatever I can do to help you guys understand the food that's being offered. In fact, I think I'm going to do like an independent marketing survey to the kids, because see, you guys don't have kids, so you don't know. My kid and other kids that I'm involved with tell me that the food is awful. So there you go. I also want to say thanks, Sal, for running, and thanks everybody who voted for him. Because of him, we're allowed to have this virtual hybrid meeting. Boom. So now my speech. My husband and I moved to Lacey 11 years ago. I immediately immersed myself in this town. I registered with our church and am currently a catechist. I was on the board of directors for the Lacey Girls Softball League for a number of years. I have coached softball and basketball. I am and have been active with all of the PTA and club booster groups. I was a go-to mom for help when the drama department needed it, when the band department needed it, and when teachers needed it. I volunteered as a class mom more times than I can count. I was even employed by this district, at first as a substitute, filling in here and there as needed. It wasn't often that a job would come up, not like now, but it was enough to get me into the schools and become familiar with my children's friends and their teachers. In 2015, I got a phone call from the principal at Cedar Creek asking me if I wanted a permanent part-time job as the greeter at that school. I was excited. I really liked that post. I saw my daughter regularly, got to interact with the teachers, and mostly got to see all the little kids coming and going to class. I held doors, tied shoes, cleaned throw up, and even gave out treats to their younger siblings while they waited inside the building for dismissal. I was vocal about the so-called security of the building. No phone, no "oh shoot" button, and those that know me know that I did not type "oh shoot" button. Nothing, just me. Yes, I'm a feisty Italian American and all of 4'11" and 130 pounds. I couldn't even see who was at the door in person or through the camera feed because of the sun's angle. I suggested moving the desk, installing a phone, anything to help me secure the building. I was very happy when the new vestibules were installed and have been following the rules that came with them for the children. While employed at Cedar Creek, I realized that the rules, mandates, or laws do not apply to everyone. Parents were rude to me when I tried to back them up from the lobby so the kids could pass after music or gym, or even just to part the mob so the children could leave the building at dismissal. Another parent tried to just go past the greeter desk into the school. I tried to stop her. She got in my face, inches from me, calling me every rude name you can think of. I told her I was just doing as I'm told and that no one is allowed to pass the desk without signing in. She complained to the principal, who then called me into her office and told me to just let the parent do whatever they wanted. There was also an incident after the district spent, I don't know how much money on the new sign-in procedure. Do you guys remember that one? The one with the book and the lanyards and all that mess. I had to be trained on how to use it and how to implement it. No one was allowed past the desk at all without signing in, including district employees. This meant everyone had to at least sign
Excuse me,
in.
Mrs. Leiter, that is 5 minutes. I'm so
All
sorry.
right, I'll come back. I'm making a note of where I left off. I'll be back.
Thank you, Mrs. Leiter. Mr. Mervin?
All right, so Gavin R., you may unmute your microphone, state your name and address for the record, and begin your public comment.
Good evening. My name is Gavin Rossi. My address is P.O. Box 1232, Forked River, New Jersey. I had a few things to cover tonight. First of all, on Oprah, I actually have to say, I think Mr. DeGeorge has been doing a great job. I've seen some really poor performing Oprah custodians in my work, and I think Mr. DeGeorge makes a good effort with complying with the law. So he has my thanks for that. When I last addressed this board, I mentioned several of the ethics complaints that were filed in 2019. I just wanted to give everybody a quick update on the status of that. So since I last spoke to you, the School Ethics Commission actually found probable cause on my complaint against the former board president, Mr. Giordano, for using the former school board attorney inappropriately to investigate political opponents. So what's going on with that is there's going to be some final motion practice. I reviewed a copy of an order signed by an administrative law judge, and they've actually scheduled hearings in the consolidated ethics complaints. So save the date. October 5th, 6th, 12th, and 13th of 2022 before Administrative Law Judge Pelios. All the 2019 ethics cases will be going to trial, and hopefully we'll be getting a resolution to that soon. With that said, I also wanted to make the board and public aware of the critical mismanagement that's occurring with the Lacey Education Foundation. It's really sad because I attended all of those meetings in person. It was a great idea. I really hoped for it to be successful. But what we've seen is a derelict foundation at this point. The IRS actually has a requirement that if a foundation does not file a short postcard tax return 3 years in a row, they will actually revoke the nonprofit registration of that organization. So if the LEF does not file a tax return for a third year in a row, all the good work that's been done with that foundation is going to be out the window because the donations will not be tax deductible. I'm personally disappointed in that. I think a lot of people that were put on that board were put on that board for political reasons because they had ties to certain members of this board. And it's just unfortunate. You know, actually in 8th grade, my math teacher had a phrase for when our class was behaving badly. And she would say, "Way to go, Lacey." So unfortunately, I have to say, way to go, Lacey. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Rossi. Appreciate the comments. Mr. Mervin?
Kristen N., please unmute your microphone, state your name and address for the record, and begin your public comment.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm Kristen, Kristen Neal. I live in Forked River. I just want to say after COVID-19 hit our country in 2019, our children have suffered tremendously. Between their identity, free will, education, social experience, and psychiatric livelihood, the children of today have experienced a completely different quote unquote normal than us baby boomers, Gen X, or millennials grew up with. This generation has been robbed of precious moments, experiences, and opportunities that are supposed to create everlasting memories during their childhood. Every aspect of our children's lives are on the line, psychologically, cognitively, emotionally, and socially. Masking mandates have created a Great Depression within our school walls and among the grade school population. And I swore to myself when my daughter was born that I would always be her protector. And I know today that I am making her proud. Our children have adapted to an unusual way of daily living, which consists of them living in fear and intimidation by other kids and school employees. They have been coached to believe that if they do not wear a mask, they are responsible for any negative consequences it might bring. They believe if they take off their mask, it could lead to a death of a peer, a loved one, or anyone they surround themselves with. They hold themselves responsible for the outbreaks among their peers, for wearing the quote unquote wrong kind of mask, or even quote unquote wearing one incorrectly. These mandates have created a paranoia within our children that is not acceptable. Since COVID-19, along with the mandates when they began, students within the school systems have been bullied for having different beliefs from one another. And this act of violence has only increased over time. Bullying has been proven to cause psychiatrical, emotional, and social disorders, such as depression, anxiety, drug and alcohol abuse, and suicide. Are the masks worth the long-term psychological effects on our children? As a parent, I say no. These issues don't just stop with masks. Our children are getting bullied for their vaccination status. Vaccinated students segregate the unvaccinated, and they feel shame and embarrassment because of their views every day. This is also happening among the adult population in today's world. Many students and parents have become angry because of the promises that were made by the government, public health, and board officials among the schools that this is the new norm, will soon end one day. If the guidelines were followed. It's been almost 3 years into this pandemic. When will this chaos end? And our kids get their childhood back? You know, the old normal. Just like other diseases we have experienced throughout the years, COVID is no different. We're at the point where we need to encourage herd immunity, not continually wearing masks. This is not a way of life for our children. We need to teach our children and society to be strong and stand up for their God-given rights. It is our responsibility to stand up for our children, as well as the ones who cannot do it for themselves. Children cannot internalize this kind of shame and guilt that was so selfishly put on their shoulders. They have been stripped of their memorable school experiences that each and every one of us had the opportunity to live through confidently. We, as Lacey Township residents, now have come together to save this generation from the tyranny that is going on in our school systems. We have every intention to continue to unite as one until the abuse on our children ends. We will not accept the hybrid format as an option due to segregation, and the parents of Lacey are demanding further action. We are demanding an appropriate off-premises location that will fit everyone's needs. We are also asking the following board members to resign: Frank Polino, Edward Scanlon, Donna McAvoy, Harold Peters, Linda Dowling, and Kim Claus. The residents of Lacey are done. We want the members who will listen to the people and not the government. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Kristen. So, you know, I would hope to think that no faculty or staff would be bullying our children into believing that they're harming somebody else because they're not properly wearing a mask. I would hope that's not the case. And what happens between children, it's unfortunate. We've all been there back in our day in school, whether you had blonde hair, red hair, blue eyes, green eyes, whatever it is, that's, you know, out of our control. But we try to, you know, stop any type of bullying behavior because it's not acceptable on any level, whether it's about vaccinations, about masks, or anything else like that. And again, you know, we're doing this virtual, and I think it's going to work. And at this point, I'm going to go to the next virtual person, Mr. Merman.
Thank you, Mr. Polino. At this time, Morgan C., you may unmute your microphone, state your name and address for the record, and begin your public comment.
Hi, my name is Morgan C. I live in Lacey, New Jersey. I have children, 3 children that all attend Lacey Township. I first want to say thank you for giving us the virtual option so we're able to speak tonight and not walk in fear, afraid that we're all going to leave being charged because we weren't wearing masks. So thank you. But I also would like to say we are requesting an alternate location. We would like an outside location where it is our choice if we want to wear a mask or not. Again, I appreciate being able to speak virtually, but I feel like it would be a lot better for all of us to be able to be a part of that meeting instead of sitting on the other side of a phone line where you guys can't even see my face, you can't see my expression, you can't see anything. So I wanted to discuss that. I also wanted to say, I still disagree strongly that Mr. Armato had been given no committee. I just feel it's wrong. I feel it's segregation, and I wish that something could be done about that. The mask issue, I would like to talk about children that have learning disabilities and the mask issue. My son has a
Morgan, we can't hear you. You're very muffled. If you can try, I don't know what you're doing with your phone or whatever.
Oh, no. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Am
Thank
I
you.
still muffled?
No, you're good.
Did you hear anything I just said?
Yeah, we just lost the last words about the masks. That was it.
Okay, so I would like to discuss learning disabilities and the mask issue. My son has a non-classified learning disability because of a DTaP vaccine injury that was given at 9 months old. From that vaccine injury, he became failure to thrive and he lost many of his oral milestones, which then put him in speech therapy and disabled pre-K for his speech therapy. Moving on, he had the most amazing speech therapist at Cedar Creek, Mrs. Watson. Since he has graduated from no longer needing speech therapy, there has been a decline with him putting that mask on his face all over again. I'm hearing different sounds that he used to have coming out again because his face is always covered. He's not getting the sounds out that he needs to be getting out. So I wanted to discuss that. I also wanted to say, this mask versus non-mask, vax versus non-vax, this is segregation at its finest. It's not fair for our children that are not vaccinated and that are not wanting to wear masks, that they feel like these teachers are looking at them like there's something wrong with them. And that's literally what's happening. You had made a comment with the woman that spoke prior and you said, well, I certainly hope that's not the case. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but that is most definitely the case. These children know that these teachers, not all of them, because there are some warriors in Lacey Township. And you warriors out there, you teachers that are fighting for our children, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. But the rest that make our children feel like there's something wrong with them because they don't want to put a mask on, that is not okay, in my opinion. There was one other thing that I wanted to say, and we are not making steps forward in Lacey. We are taking steps back. And our children see it. There's a decline. There's not progression. My children are also quarantining. I said this last week and I will say it again. My children are quarantining more than they're in school. My kids are constantly being sent home to quarantine because they were exposed to an exposure or whatever. And I feel it's because everybody knows that my kids aren't vaccinated and my kids know that I'm a freedom fighter. And I feel that, again, it's segregation at its finest. I am asking all of the members that had anything to do with charges being pressed against parents who are just fighting for their children's rights to please step down. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Charterina. I know this is a big topic about moving off site somewhere. And I know you just mentioned about going an outside location. I don't know about anybody else, but I don't think I really want to have a 2-hour board meeting sitting out on a football field or somewhere in January, February, or March, whatever. And so the public knows, if they're not aware, that the township, if we were to move to the township municipal complex, they're requiring masks, and township buildings are requiring masks. So we can't go to a township facility. So we're kind of limited on if we decided to go somewhere where we can go. And I'll bring it up later in my comments about the charges, and I'll explain some things there. So next, Mr. Merman, and thank you, Morgan, for your comments.
Cheryl A., please unmute your microphone, state your name and address for the record, and begin your public comment.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, so my name is Cheryl Armato. I live in Lenoka Harbor. I currently have 2 sons in the school district. So this board has violated their oath of office, the US Constitution, the New Jersey Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the 1st, 4th, 5th, and 14th Amendments by requiring me to wear a mask potentially harmful to my health, to attend indoor sporting events and BOE meetings in person. It dismays me that I have to educate the educators regarding constitutional rights because it's clear they are not teaching the Constitution in our schools. I suggest you start reading our founding fathers' documents because apparently you do not know they exist. By enforcing unconstitutional, lawless mandates, you have segregated, harassed, excluded, bullied, and attempted to shame the unmasked or unvaccinated into compliance in order to peacefully assemble. We are witnessing the absolute control our elected officials believe they have, not only over our children, but also over the parents, the taxpayers, and the residents of Lacey. When schools choose to kowtow to the government for federal funding, we no longer have public schools. We have government-controlled schools. The Zoom option should always continue for all those that cannot attend for personal reasons only, never solely for mass discrimination and segregation purposes. We, the people, demand equal treatment and opportunity to attend in person if we so choose. You can either allow all to attend meetings held at our school, or you can provide an offsite location. I'm sure there's a VFW, maybe the library. It doesn't have to be the town hall for the February 2020 meeting and beyond. So all people who want to attend could be included and welcome, free from harassment, intimidation, and bullying. And yes, adults do bully other adults, as I have a warning that came to my house that I have to go to court. So we'll talk about that later. The tyranny and segregation of this board will no longer be tolerated. There is no justification for masking children who have near zero risk of death, especially when the risk of suicide and murder is so much higher. We cannot continue on this lie that masking helps children or anyone for that matter. We, the people, demand the following from this Board of Education. Support medical choice and vote to end the mask mandate in all districts effective immediately. Remove all government propaganda within the district. So signs that tell kids superheroes wear masks, now we do too. That's mask indoctrination and should not be tolerated within our schools. Stop contact tracing, which sends healthy kids home for 5 days to quarantine. It causes confusion, isolation, depression, and psychological damage. They're not sick and they're told they're sick and they have to stay home. Stop all this talk of vaccination segregating our children, sending unvaxxed kids home and allowing vaxxed kids to stay in school if contact traced. Makes zero sense, as vaccinated people get COVID too. Stop discriminating against parents who want to attend sport events in school and they're forced to mask up to attend, so they feel intimidated to enter the building. It's again a violation of our constitutional rights. It's our right, it's my right, if I want to go see my sons play sports in school, to be allowed in there without a mask. Stop masking our athletes, our cheerleaders, our bands, as their activities are considered aerobic, and the mandate you blindly follow clearly exempts participating aerobic, taking those masks off when you participate in aerobic activities. So unmask these kids. Why are the cheerleaders out there with masks on? and the physical, emotional, and psychological harm to both children and parents. If you refuse to end these unlawful mandates because you are afraid to stand up for our children's constitutional rights, then resign and let those of us willing to fight for our children take the lead. And I also want to add that my middle school son came in and he heard the conversations and he said, "Mom, the food is god awful. I don't know what they ate, but the food is horrible." So I just want to add that. So thank you for allowing me to comment. But when this board says that they don't tolerate bullying, I have to laugh because I myself was bullied. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a court date. So I'd like to hear your response to that.
Thank you, Ms. Amato. So I'll address the so-called bullying issue under my comments for me and set something straight. We will never go off-site to a place that serves alcohol. VFW, Moose, Elks, Yaks, whatever it is, we're not going to a place that serves alcohol. There's no reason we should be leaving our home. And I think the fellow board members agree with that. Maybe Mr. Amato doesn't. But I think what we're offering right now is more than a compromise to allow those that don't wear masks to still appreciate the meeting. And there's no issue with this. So that's it. And as far as the comment I'm going to make, constitutional wise, back when this country was part of the motherland, England, the people got upset because they had taxation without representation. And if you remember from your history, that's why we started the revolution and got away from Mother England. And we now have representation. So all the parents that come here demanding of us to turn the blind eye to law, to violate the law, to do this, that, and the other thing, this is not the forum for it. All right. You need to be contacting your legislatures. They're the people that you voted or may not have voted, but whatever it is, they're in office. They're the ones that make the change. Okay. Doesn't happen here. All right. Every day we follow laws. So this is no different. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Murray. Next, Mr. Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Polino. At this time, I don't see anybody else with a hand up that has not already spoken. So there we go. We've got one. So Allison H. Please unmute your microphone, state your name and address for the record, and begin your public comment.
Mr. Polino, I'd just like to add that the board's obligation is to have public comment, let everyone speak one time. There's no obligation to have people come back second and third times at the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Padula. So I think with that, we're going to close public comments at this time.
I didn't get to speak yet.
So, and this is who?
This is
Allison H.
I know who that is.
She did not speak yet.
Who is that?
Allison.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Allison.
That's okay. Thank you very much. I would like to speak about the food that you guys had mentioned that you had received. My kids were, as well as other kids were probably listening in. They couldn't believe how you guys just said that the food that you guys had experienced was great. You thought it was good, except for the chicken nuggets, which my daughter said, yeah, those were disgusting as well. But they looked at me and they were like, how can they believe that that food was great? I mean, they just looked at, and they just looked at us and just shook their heads and walked away. So just to let you know that, as Mrs. Later had said, to take a poll about kids, maybe that should be an option. Maybe you should have a poll for the kids and have them take an option if the food is good or not, and you would be surprised what you would get. As far as this executive orders and mask mandate, I would just like to know what the board's decision will be when the mandate is done and when these rules stop. Is it going to be parental option? Is it going to be they still have to mask? Because we all know that eventually this will end, hopefully soon rather than later. That is one of my concerns, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I heard, I guess Ms. Leiter say something about, you had a catered dinner and stuff like that. folks have to understand that these were trays that were made up at the cafeteria. They put saran wrap on them and they brought them to the board office and left them there all day. And we opened it up and ate it as is. So it's not like we had a white glove, 5-star, catering service come in. We took what the children have. And I didn't say it was great. I said it was okay. And I think that was the majority of the people. And can there be room for improvement? Absolutely. I mean, back when we were kids, yeah, we know it's but again, it's not a 5-star restaurant we're running here. We're just providing what, the meals are required. And I think probably the board is in complete agreement that once the governor lifts it and makes it either choices or we go back to no masks at all, I don't think any of us are going to say, okay, yeah, let's keep the masks on. None of us like this. We get it. It's horrible. We hate sitting up here with them on. And we absolutely, once there's a change, I would almost bet, and I'm going to speak for myself, but not the whole board, but I think everybody's would probably be the same way. Get rid of these things. So, okay. With that, we're going to close public session.
Mr.
Cesar-
Polino, excuse me,
Yes.
Mr. Polino, we still have some new people in queue that have raised their hands. So would you like
All
me to
right,
continue?
thank you,
public
Mr.
comment?
Senz. It's not your time at this point. So that's it. Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Merman. Can you say again,
Yes.
please?
We do have a number of people that have not spoken that have recently raised their hands virtually. Would you like to continue with public comment?
All right, go ahead and I'm sorry. Yeah,
Okay,
go
so
ahead and
at-
give me the new people that are on there, Mr. Merman. Go ahead.
So at this time, Jessica D., please unmute your microphone, state your name and address for the record, and begin your public comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. I will not bore the board with the additional comments that some of the previous folks have said because I agree with them 100%. However, I will add a few notes to them, which is you, and I say you, Mr. Polino, you respectfully just said that this is working for us. I believe that this is working for us, and I think we are all in agreement. Again, speaking for your board. However, that's just it. We are not all in agreement. You are not listening to your citizens. We numerous times on occasion since August have respectfully asked you, and at the time, the previous president, to please move the location. We need to come together. There is something to be said that everybody's getting very angry. Obviously, emotions are high, which we all know why. However, we need to move forward. There has to be a point where you have to start listening to your people. We are being segregated. We should be able to be sitting in those damn chairs right now, not sitting here where right now you are. Just from the camera view, I couldn't even identify you if I tried. That is ridiculous. That is not how a board meeting should be held. We are part of this community. We have the right to be sitting in those seats, masked or unmasked. If you want to continue to not listen to your citizens, it's going to be more and more of an issue. I don't understand how you get away with constantly not listening to us. The next thing, the masking, I will 100% agree with Cheryl and another parent. This is the masking, the signs. Don't forget your mask. Superheroes wear them. Now we do too. That is absolutely just brainwashing our children. And my children are afraid to take off their masks. They are afraid that they're going to get in trouble by every single teacher because they are getting in trouble. It's not they are afraid, they are getting in trouble. I told you guys I had a run-in with Mrs. Renuska where she pulled my 5-year-old out of kindergarten class into the hallway, handed her a paper mask and asked her to please put this on because other kids are getting sick. You're telling me that's not a sense of scaring a 5-year-old? That is absolutely what we've been saying. These are the items that you guys keep overlooking. It's unbearable. And not to mention, now that the tracing, I have a perfectly healthy young lady that now cannot go to school for the rest of this week because her other classmates are being quarantined, and because the class numbers are too high for students that have been, I guess, getting COVID. I asked the school nurse, I said, my child has already had COVID. Shouldn't that matter? Shouldn't I, as a parent, be able to say, my children shows no signs of any symptoms. My children should be able to go to school. I have a healthy child that cannot go to school. This is unheard of, absolutely unheard of. I'm asking you guys to please resign. You guys obviously have been indoctrinated with just chaos and not listening to your community, and something needs to change.
Mr. DeLuca, if you have a question about quarantining, so it's something you want to take up with the building principal or the assistant superintendent, you could explain that more. Mr. Mervin, who's next?
Anthony R., please unmute your microphone, state your name and address for the record, and begin your public comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good evening.
Good
First off, on the agenda, A, new business, number 1, question number 5, or listing number 5.
Excuse me 1 second. I'm assuming this is Mr. Rizzoli. Can you just
Yeah,
Stephanie, say your name?
Tony Rizzoli, Sunrise Beach.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, on the agenda, new business, A1, number 5. It says you're eliminating the 5-minute rule. If that's the, am I correct?
I'm sorry, where are you at?
New business, A1, number 5 on the agenda.
Oh, the resolution, I'm sorry.
Yes.
It says you can get up one
What's that?
time, whether it be in the first part of the meeting or in the public second part of the meeting, you get one shot at the microphone. That's what it says.
No, it's not.
No.
It says once on agenda.
Then explain it to me, because that's the way I'm interpreting it.
Mr. Rizzoli, this is the board attorney. It reads the opportunity to speak once on agenda items and once on any topic.
Okay, I
So
read that.
Allows you to talk twice.
So if I get up and I speak, all right, and then somebody else gets up and speak, and they bring up a subject that I want to readdress, I don't have that opportunity to get up again, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, that infringes on my freedom of speech, and you as an attorney should know better than that. Okay, and I'll tell you why.
My
Let me
legal
tell
opinion,
you
Mr.
why.
Rizzoli, is I
Let me
disagree
tell
with that.
you why. I'll tell Mr. Polino, he could tell you why. The reason is very simple. I can't go to a principal. I don't have kids in school. The only place that I can say something is that at that microphone during a meeting, and that's my position. That's number 1. Number 2, policy number 1648.14. It addresses the teachers and addresses employees. Okay. Now, I don't understand something. If I'm a teacher, and as the previous speaker just said, they have a child that's well, that has been sent home to be quarantined, and I'm in that house, okay? And all of a sudden, as a teacher, I can't go to work. Now, under FMLA in the state of New Jersey, I am forced, I believe, to use my paid sick days. I don't think that's really fair that you're forcing me to use my paid sick days when my child's not sick. I can't go to work because of your policies. I think that's discriminatory. And I think the policy should be looked at again. I really don't think that's right. Now, if you're not going to use my paid sick days, then I have to use my personal days. Again, I'm not the person sick. My child has been quarantined by you. I'm not sick. You're not allowing me to work. You're forcing me to use my benefits. What kind of, that's just not negotiated properly, if you ask me. Okay? And that's pretty much all I have to say, except that the business agent should really take it up with their attorney and then talk to your barrister. Have a nice night.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzoli. And again, the whole contact tracing and who gets quarantined is on the recommendations of the CDC, passed out to states and the health departments, which is passed on to us, which we follow. So this is something that could be addressed to Mr. Zelinski if anybody has a question. And, Mr. Rizzoli, I'll just respond one thing, saying that although you may not have a microphone to stand up in front of you, certainly have sent emails before if you had questions. So there certainly is another avenue option for anybody in the public who has questions to follow their chain of command type people and then go to their, if they don't like what they're hearing from their building principals or teachers to go forward with that. Mr. Merman?
Jason B., please unmute your microphone, state your name and address for the record, and begin your public comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, Jason Buto, 2115 Lacey Road, Forked River. So early on in the meeting, you had talked about the kids getting a 60. You guys were gonna make sure that they get a 60 if they're not even trying. I just have a question. Why aren't they trying? Is it because, they have no will to keep going, or is anybody talking to them to try and get them to work harder, or are we just trying to give them a grade to keep them going to get more funds? It was kind of confusing what you guys were saying early on. I wasn't really understanding, but it kind of sounded like we're just going to give them and a higher grade so that they can keep going, but we're not going to find out why they're not even trying. Secondly, a lot of the kids are probably not doing very well because of the masks, because of what's going on in the world right now. And they could probably use some more help and maybe some, normalcy. I heard that some of the kids are having to eat lunch in their classroom. I mean, we all went to high school, regardless if you have kids or not. We all went to high school, and I remember in lunch, we got to walk around the tables and go sit with other friends. I'm hearing some of our schools in this district give assigned seats and all this stuff, and it just sounds to me like these kids aren't even allowed to think critically. They're not allowed to do anything or make their own decisions. They're kind of being treated like robots, and it just doesn't sound right to me. And it could be between the masks and everything else. I think we're going to have a generation of kids that are going to be mentally extremely screwed up. And I think we need to start addressing that. I also think we shouldn't be taking federal funds or extra state funds and try to do this locally, because it seems like what I'm seeing here is we're so worried about funds that we're pretty much just going to do whatever the state or federal government tells us. We're not going to concentrate on the kids. And I think that needs to change. Lastly, this public comment being this way, Mr. Polino, you're already trying to rush public comment because you ain't got people sitting in front of you. Mr. Armato is off site because of the mask issue, which is ludicrous to me. Dr. Clark is putting out a survey or trying to get people's opinion on some items that she's going to be emailing us. Maybe she should add on there how many people want this off-site, and we can get a vote on who wants this off-site, and maybe by next meeting or the meeting after that, we can see how that ends up. That's pretty much all I have.
Mr. Vito, you brought up a lot of topics, but the one thing I do want to address, and I'm actually going to ask Mr. Zelinski to do that, and I'm not sure how much of the first part of the meeting you heard, but I think there's a misunderstanding about the safety net. And I think you lumped it into a lot of other conversations, but I'm going to ask Mr. Zelinski to just provide a very brief overview of what the safety net is and what it is not.
So to be brief, the safety net does not exist as a policy by itself. It exists within our grading policy for over 20 years for the middle school and the high school here in Lacey Township. What it basically does is that it provides students with a moment in time, generally the first half of their course, not to score so low that it would make it nearly impossible for them to pass the course in the middle school and the high school. It exists in many schools, in Ocean County at least, if not statewide. It just provides the students with a mathematical chance to pass the class. This is coupled with help. Once students engage the safety net, they'll be looked at differently by their teachers to make sure that they get some form of remediation, some form of help so that they can raise their grade. Because if you do the math, and you score a 0 or something low, over time, many students have given up and then they don't pass the course. So it really gives us an opportunity to work with them on a positive side of things where they can then go past the course. It exists within our grading policy. It is not a policy by itself. It's part of a greater grading policy that we operate at the middle school and the high school. We operate a grading policy for all of our grades, but the middle school and the high school, particularly when you take specific courses, you get specific grades and numbers associated with those grades. And that's especially at the high school, when we're talking about a transcript, it becomes critically important that we give students opportunities to recover themselves when they haven't performed well for various reasons. Not always that they just didn't do the work. There can be home reasons, there can be life reasons, there can be a lot of things going on. So that's as brief as I can be on the safety net that exists. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Zielinski.
Okay.
Mr. Mervin, next.
Donna N., please unmute your microphone. Actually, Donna has lowered her hand, so we'll move on to Maureen N. Please unmute your microphone, state your name and address for the record, and begin your public comment. Once again, Maureen N., you may unmute your microphone at this time.
Hello. I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I just have a couple of comments here. First, I wanted to get your opinion on the fact that the CDC agrees that the masks do not work. So how do you justify enforcing the masks on the children if the CDC, who we were told to follow all along throughout this pandemic, is advising us they don't work? Do you have any
Can you answer the
justification
question?
for that?
Yeah, well, we heard your comments. Go on with the rest of your comments.
Okay, so as well, New York City just also dropped their mask mandate. Abiding by what the CDC has recommended is that the masks don't work. So now we have scientific evidence that we've had all along. It's just coming to the surface now. So at what point, I'm wondering that you guys are actually going to take that into consideration. Also, I would like to talk about an email I sent to Dr. Clark over just about 2 weeks ago now in reference to the ESSER funds. Still not received a reply. I stopped by the Board of Ed office today, which I was made to wait in the foyer, and given many excuses of why I wasn't able to find out. All we needed to know was what exact verbiage needs to be written to request a copy of those ESSER funds that were given for COVID, the first and second payment. I'm not sure if you received the third or not. So I'm curious as to why this information does seem to be hidden from the public and all of us residents in Lacey, because myself, among many other parents, have requested that. And as I told the Secretary Teresa earlier, we've all pretty much got the same email back saying that we were not precise enough in our request. So I think tonight, after a couple of the parents spoke, you pretty much know exactly what we want. And as any CEO of any company, when you're talking millions of dollars, there's going to be an Excel spreadsheet. And that's what we want. We want an Excel spreadsheet of a breakdown of all the allocations of where the ESSER COVID funds went to in the township of Lacey. We are allowed to get that because it's public record, and we should have that. That's our taxpayer money that is going towards it. So I would like to know why the Dr. Clark would not have responded to the email. And why am I being forced to have a phone meeting with Patrick DeGeorge tomorrow just to get the verbiage that I need to request from him? I'm not understanding why I couldn't just been told by his secretary the actual words that I need to write in order to get this form. It's very secretive. It's not transparent whatsoever. If there's certain words that need to be used, and yet Mr. DeGeorge is going to email 6 people back and tell them that we weren't specific enough, it would save him time to just let us know what do we need to write in order to get this, because we're not going to stop until we get the breakdown. Now, I noticed the parking lot has been pretty full lately over there at the Board of Ed offices. So I'm just curious if that's just everybody working overtime to pretty much cover up what is in that Excel spreadsheet and where those funds went, because that's a long time to get a report that is obviously in a computer somewhere, and all you have to do is hit the print button. Also, I find it odd that tomorrow, after this meeting and after this week with all this coming out about the ESSER funds, I find it very odd that tomorrow is the day that the students are going to bring home a form about where we think the ESSER fund should go. Well, are they not all spent yet? And is there even anything left? Also, I want to point out the last thing is that my children go to Cedar Creek Elementary School, and it was about 2 months ago where we received a letter stating that if my child goes to school and they forget their mask, they would no longer be supplying the masks for them anymore because they're just too pricey. And too many kids in the school were forgetting them. And Cedar Creek could no longer afford to hand out disposable masks to the ones that did forget it. So flash forward 2 more months, and now I see that you have over $5 million in the town of Lacey, but yet you couldn't supply my child with a mask if needed. Doesn't make any sense. So this is what we want to get to the bottom of. And that's all I have to say for tonight.
Okay, thank you. So I would address Mr. DeGeorge. Certainly there's nothing being hidden about this. We just had an audit of our accounts through the CPA firm that we have, and everything seems to be on the up and up about that. Nothing hidden. So I would think that if there's something that's allowed to be given out to the public, I would see why Mr. DeGeorge wouldn't give that to you. Whatever language you need to get it, I would hope that, it would be given to you so you folks get what you're looking for. So that'll be something we'll pass to Mr. DeGeorge. Based on the CDC, we get our marching orders from the state health department or the county health department. Whatever happens in New York happens in New York. Whatever happens in New Jersey, and if this ban is lifted, then so be it. And like I said before, I would think that everybody here would probably rip their mask off and throw it away if they could, at any given moment, we're told. So there's no question we don't want these things. So, Mr. Merman?
Stephanie L., please unmute your microphone, state your name and address for the record, and begin your public comment.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Stephanie Lodi of Forked River, New Jersey. I'm one of the parents. I completely agree that if we can move the board meetings off site, I'm in favor of that. There are other towns that already do so. Middletown does hold at the VFW, but Mr. Polino, after you saying that the concern is alcohol is served at a place like that, there is another town that has had past meetings held at their firehouse. And I know for sure that the Lenoka Harbor Firehouse, they have a pretty big room. I think maybe we could look into something like that and not worry about alcohol. The other comment I wanted to make was, a few of the parents have charges that were pressed against them. I am requesting that those charges get dropped. We are the only district in all of New Jersey that parents are facing disorderly conduct charges for showing up without masks. I would hope that those could get dropped. You know, we're just parents. We're trying to stick up for what we believe is right for our children. I am sure anybody sitting up there, if there was something that their kids had to be forced to do that you just in the depths of your soul believed was wrong, you would stand up for that as well. So I just want the parents who have the charges that are pressed against them to know that I am on your side. Many of us are, and we really would like the charges dropped against them. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and I will address those charges in my board comments. Mr. Merman?
Mr. Polino, at this time, I do not see anybody with a raised hand who has not already spoken. I don't know if you want to give another moment, but at this time, I do not see anybody with a hand raised that has not already spoken.
You are who, ma'am? Okay, you already spoken once, right? Okay, so we've been at this for a long time, so yeah, we've been at this a long time, Mrs. Slider, so we're going that, yeah, so. Okay, so. What?
Mr. Polino, the board meeting started at 6. We had public session for approximately an hour. If not, it exceeded an hour. It's nearly 9 o'clock. We've been here 3 hours and the board has not even taken any action items. Ms. Slider did have 5 minutes to speak. I see she does have prepared comments in her hand. If she'd like to submit them for the record, we could make them part of the record.
Go ahead, Ms. Slider, and this is it. Thank you, Mr.
Emery Lighter, the Woods of Bamberg. I'll clean up when I'm done. District employees that had their badges did not need a badge, but they had to sign in. One day, Mr. DeGeorge, Mr. Zielinski, and a guest came into the building. I buzzed them in and asked them to sign in. Mr. DeGeorge and the guest did so. Mr. Zielinski said he didn't have to. I corrected him and told him of the rules. He said, and I quote, "The rules are not for me." That was it. I gave my notice. Now the district wants to know my health history in order for me to substitute in the district. It's not your business. I contacted Human Resources and received notice this afternoon that my request to deactivate my substitute account has been met. Lacey Township has lost another good one, if I do say so myself. Another willing, able, and passionate person gone. I asked last meeting about the quality of the food. We talked about it. I'll skip it. I'm going to do like a little marketing survey with kids because it's really not right. The minutes of the meeting, mention of the parents. Oh, listen, that sign at Cedar Creek that says like mask heroes, heroes wear a mask, you should too. You said that was like a bullying thing, or you said no bullying. That's bullying. That sign needs to go. It's intimidating. It's wrong. Is this how it's going to work now? This board seems to do whatever they want, not taking into account what the people are asking of them. I've been cited by the superintendent as being someone who, when I bring up a problem or an issue, I also come up with a solution. This COVID mask issue has got me twisted. I'm trying to get educated on what I can do about it. At first, I didn't think much. I keep attending meetings, reading, asking questions, thanking people for showing up for work, thanking people for volunteering, bringing up many concerns that I have, none of which have been addressed, getting involved. I don't care what everyone else wants or what they don't want. I want a choice, and I am getting educated. At the January, and I'm shaking, at the January 12th meeting, Mr. Polino, you threatened, no, you waited, you promised to press charges on anyone not wearing a mask. I felt threatened, and again, on the 20th, again, feeling threatened and intimidated and discriminated against. You're not at liberty, Mr. Polino, to violate my rights. And I've never had this feeling against the board before. I don't get it. Although this meeting started nice, but you cut me off. That's not right. Whew. You violated the United States Constitution, the New Jersey Constitution, the Bill of Rights. You're asking me to wear this mask. It's the only way I could get heard. I appreciate being heard. With that being said, masking, discrimination, segregation, stop it. Vote no. Lead us. If they're asking for work or papers or whatever, show us how. If we're asking for help, show us how. Help us. You're representing us. There's me and 2 other people here. And I sped down the road to get here. Just lead us. That's all. Thank you for letting me.
Thank you, Ms. Lyon.
Mr. Polino, we did have one new member of the public go into queue. Would like to take that public comment at this time?
Okay, we'll take this last person, then we're going to close. Yes. Yeah, I just said this is the last comment, and we're going to close public comment.
Okay, at this time, Donna N., please unmute your microphone, state your name and address for the record, and begin your public comment.
Hello, my name is Donna Neal, in Forked River, New Jersey. Well, I'm probably one of the few grandmothers that have been coming to these board meetings. I'm a mother of 4 and a grandmother of 9 grandchildren. And I have to say that it's really opened my eyes to a lot of things. Mostly everything has been said already, so I'm not going to repeat. However, I'd like to address certain items and I'd like them followed up on. So the first one is the food. I worked in a hospital for 35 years. And when you taste 3 food items and just kind of say, wow, it was okay. Are you dropping the whole thing now with the food, or are you going to continue looking into it? I worked in a hospital all my life, and the floors sometimes in the hospital were dirty, the curtains were dusty. But boy, when that state inspection came, everybody did everything they could to make sure those floors were shiny waxed, and the curtains were cleaned. I suggest that possibly you use some of your seniors to go in there and taste the food, or hire a food consultant. If the food is that bad that the children are saying it's bad, then something's bad, something's wrong. And maybe you just happen to get the 2 or 3 items that they make the best. So I hope that this is not a closed item, because there's still work that needs to be done with it. The second thing I have a comment on is the safety net. I feel that the safety net is dumbing down our children. Every time you lower their bar, they get dumber and dumber. When we were younger, the bar was high and we had to reach those bars. And if you didn't succeed. And later on, when you matured, you went back to school, you made a good career for yourself, and you got through it. But every time we create enabling in our children, it brings them lower and lower. You know, these kids don't even know their math facts. They don't even know their math facts. They're counting on their fingers. You've got to be kidding me. I just can't even believe it. They can't even read. And New Jersey states that we have the best school system in the United States of America. Prove it. When was the last time these kids were tested? Are you not testing them because you know what's going to come out of it, that they're not going to do well? I mean, we are really in a crisis situation, not with the pandemic or plandemic, but in what our children are learning. They're learning nothing. They really are truly learning nothing. I see it with my grandchildren. They're having a hard time, you know, trying to figure out math, and they're going from multiplication right into division, right into algebra, without even giving them a chance to learn because they have to catch up. So I hope that somewhere along the line, taking these masks off will help somewhat, that they can breathe, because it does affect the oxygen level. When you wear a mask, you could test it out yourself if you have an oximeter. You wear that mask, you put that oximeter on your finger, you'll see your readings pretty low. When you take that mask off and you take a few deep breaths and you put that oximeter back on, when you get air and breathe through your nose and expand your lungs, you'll see your oximeter ratings go sky high. So don't say these masks have no effect on our children. They do, and it's a proven fact. I think it was this week where they said children wearing masks, they're decreasing in their speech skills. So that's that. The Esser funds, I did get a report from the ARP Esser revised second award amounts, updated June 25th, 2021. The state of New Jersey got $2.76 billion. $2.76 billion. And you're telling me that you're raising the snacks of these children and raising some of the prices? Are you kidding me? I don't know how much Ocean County got, and that's another whole story once we see this budget. But it's mind blowing to me. It's absolutely mind blowing. We are the people, and we expect Sal to be on a committee, and I myself am demanding it. This is ridiculous. This is unconstitutional, and it's unlike any board I've ever seen. I know I haven't been to many board meetings, but I've talked to a lot of people.
Excuse me, this is 5 minutes. Thank you so much for your comment.
Yep, I'm on.
Thank you. So I would think that the food issue is not, considered done deal. I'm sure Dr. Clark and them are going to continually look into this. And right, we just took a quick sample of the food. Like I said, it wasn't bad. We didn't sample all the food every day. And again, there's room for improvement. So I'm sure Dr. Clark and the head of dietary is going to be looking into things, see if we can do better to improve stuff. The children know best, and we'll still continue to look into that. So at this point, public session is closed. We're going to jump into board comments.
Mr. Polino.
Oh, I'm sorry. What do we,
Technically, you don't need to vote
on what?
on closing public comment.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. I had to put my glasses back on. Thank you. So, at this time, we're going to just jump right into superintendent comments. You notice that the agenda has changed a bit. So I don't want to think that, we're completely ignoring all your questions. Some of you are new to this. So we added a second thing here for the superintendent to make some comments, if she chooses so, on some of the things that the participants spoke about. So Dr. Clark, you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, I do want to just talk on a couple of the items that were brought up. One is, let's talk about the food. So it is correct that the board members in committees did try the food. But one of the things that the public did not hear is that Mr. Zielinski, the day after the board meeting, when food first came up, we spent the entire day visiting the cafeterias, and we're still doing that. But to call our cafeteria food horse manure, I find that very disrespectful and not a good way to solve a problem. It is not a done deal. We will continue to visit our cafeterias and improve. It's not perfect. It is not. But the representation of what it is absolutely positively incorrect. Mr. Zielinski and I have met with a group of high school students. We will continue to do that. I did a roundtable about a month and a half ago, and I promised those students that I would be meeting with them again, and I will do that. We hear what's being said, but to use the kind of language that we're using about our cafeteria food is just very disrespectful. And again, not to say that there isn't room for improvement. There's always room for improvement. And we will continue to address that. As far as the survey goes, I believe somebody alluded that tomorrow is the first day we're asking for feedback on the survey, and that's not true. We asked for feedback right before winter break. And what I said earlier in my comments is that we would like more feedback about how we can spend these funds. It is not a secret. We are very transparent about the monies that we've received federally. And because of what I'm hearing, I believe the miscommunication is that it's how the information is being asked for through these Oprah requests. So the way these monies are being spent is no secret. In fact, I'm sitting here thinking that in February, Mr. George, Mr. Zielinski, and I will do a full presentation on exactly how those monies are being spent to show, as we always have, transparency. So we will put that together. If we can't pull it off in time for February, we will certainly do it in March. And I think that's my comments.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Clark. So with that, we're going to open up board comments. We want to do that now?
Sure.
Okay, so before we do board comments, we're going to have a spotlight on graduates, something positive.
Yes. So we have two graduates that I'm very proud to talk about tonight. The first one is Steve Torrey. He graduated from the high school in 2009, and from there he attended Keene University, where he graduated in 2013 with a degree in health and physical education. He was hired by the Lacey Township School District in the fall of 2014 and has been teaching and coaching here for the last 8 years. Currently, he's the head varsity boys soccer coach and the girls basketball coach. He currently lives in Forked River with his wife, Lindsay, who is also a PE teacher and a coach, along with his 2-year-old son, Cameron, and his 9-year-old daughter. Steve has many soccer coaching accolades that we are so proud of. 2 times his team here won the B South Championship in 2020 and 2021. 2 times Steve was the B South Coach of the Year, 2018 and 2021. In 2021, Steve was the Ocean County Coach of the Year. And in 2021, he was Shore Conference Coach of the Year. And this year, Steve was named State Coach of the Year. Steve, we are so proud of you, and we are looking forward to honoring your soccer team in February or March. So congratulations. Our next one is Lauren Condis, who graduated from the high school in 2018. Lauren went on to study pastry arts at Walnut Hill College in Philadelphia. She graduated in 3 years as the class valedictorian. Her passion for pastry began as a child watching her grandmother bake, and it heightened when she attended the Ocean County Vocational School during her junior and senior years here at the high school. In college, she interned under a world-class chef, a chocolatier, and small bakeries within the city. She graduated with her Bachelor's of Science degree and is now a proud member of Icon Hospitality, helping lead the luscious and sweet team. Congratulations, Lauren. We're looking forward to watching your career progress. Thank you, Mr. Polino.
Thank you, Ms. McAvoy. All right, with that, we're going to open up board comments. So we're going to start down my left. Mr. Amato, you are up.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by congratulating Coach Torrey, who I know personally, and I can tell you that Lacey needs more Coach Torreys in our school district. Great guy, does great things for our township. And congratulations to Lauren, well deserved. Thank you for being a role model for our kids out there. Running for the school board is something I've wanted to do for the last 3 years. And some of the experiences have been good, and some of the experience have been eye-opening as I went through the whole campaigning thing. And all of it was a learning process for me. And it's something I'll never give back, because good, bad, or indifferent, I learned from it, made me better. When on November, my name was announced as a winner, it was one of the proudest moments in my life, because of the people that were here to celebrate with me, my wife, my children, my son, my daughter calling me from where they live now. And it was just beautiful. It was just a great experience. So as I listened to and rewatched the comments and the reorg meeting on January 12th, I was amazed at how all my so-called colleagues welcomed me to the board, and that they knew that they had filed charges against me at the county prosecutor's office, filed by one of our own. Charges that could land me in prison for 6 months. Instead of reaching out and or publicly sharing their concern that a fellow board member would file charges against one of their own, they tried to deflect by wondering where I got this notion that prior board conspired to remove me from my seat before being elected. So since the inquiring minds of my colleagues are so concerned about conspiracy theories, let me jog the memory of one board member, Kim Klaus. It was you who said it at the board meeting. If you remember, it was the morning of October 16th that you and I spoke, a Saturday morning at the high school. Our men's varsity soccer team was playing a playoff game against Henry Hudson. Then later that day, we saw each other again. And that was the same day our men's varsity football team won an exciting game at Colts Neck. You stopped me as I was leaving while you were talking with 2 of our school's faculty, and you asked me how I was doing. And I immediately asked you, why are you discussing having me removed from the board if I should continue to not wear a mask? Mind you, I wasn't even elected yet. You gave me the long answer about policy, and I smiled and I walked away. So ladies and gentlemen, now you know. Factor that in with charges filed against me, not being assigned to any committee, and I ask you fellow board members and the public, does that sound like a welcoming wagon to you? My beliefs are my beliefs, and they just happen to be in line with many people in this town and not those of the fellow board members. These people are amazing and courageous. I know, because I take the time to talk to them every chance I get. We're standing up for the healthy lives of our children, the healthy lives of our children. I would think that since this is the Board of Education, you would find that admirable. Instead, you find it despicable and you want us to be silent and thrown in jail. I've been asked by my fellow board members to put a mask on for the greater good. And I ask, for the greater good of who? Certainly not me. And certainly not the greater good, and certainly the greater good does not outweigh the physical, emotional, and psychological harm to our children. Think of that the next time you visit one of our schools. We the people demand and deserve to have these meetings off-site so we can all be under the same roof and not be worrying about who is wearing a mask, but discussing the precious and healthy lives of our children, the academic concerns of many, the cafeteria concerns, and so much more. These people are our good friends. They're our neighbors. They're residents. They have a track record of being very helpful. So let's let them help any way we can legally. I hear many school districts talk about the lack of volunteers they have. Well, not here, not ever. I have learned that our people are always willing and able to help. The outcome is very simple. Move the meetings off-site so everyone can attend. Stop harassing the residents who are also your neighbors in town, and let's start doing the work we are elected to do. Muhammad Ali said, "He who is not courageous enough to take risk will accomplish nothing in life." I'm asking you, to my esteemed colleagues, let us be courageous. Let us take risks. So if we accomplish anything, it is the preservation and the quality of a child's life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amato. Mr. Peters.
I have no comments. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Claus?
Oh, I have a comment.
What should we do?
All right, Sal, just so you know, we need to start over and you need to just kind of listen to the conversation that was had in policy. And when I did see you on the field, I told you exactly what was said in policy. So I don't know why now you're twisting it, but I'll go over it again if you want me to be clear.
I didn't twist it, and I didn't say anything different.
We are in,
All right,
excuse me, it's my
Mrs.
public
Claus's
comment.
turn now.
You
Thank you,
brought it
Mr.
up.
Amato. You had your turn.
We
Go
were
ahead.
in policy committee. The meeting didn't even start. And Regina and I were talking about what's going to happen if you come and you're not masked. It was a 2-second conversation. I said, well, I guess we do have a policy because of another board member that missed 3 meetings that you would be voted off the board. End of story. That was it. I did not say, let's get them. Let's try to get them off the board. That's not what happened. We talked for a half a second about a policy that we had. And I've been encouraging you to read the policies. That is it. So from that private meeting, it got to you of something twisted. And that's not what happened. And I did reach out to you, Sal, and you know it, and you never even returned my call. Okay, so I don't know what you're trying to do, but that's not what happened. And I made it clear to you on that field that day that you're getting your information wrong from someone. Well, I'm clearing it up now. That's not what happened. The intention was not to kick you off the board, but we do have a policy. You missed 3 meetings and you're done. It's clear. I did not want you to get kicked off the board. I extended an olive branch twice to you. I don't know what you're trying to do.
Just clearing the air.
What?
Just clearing
There
the
is no
air.
air to clear. I cleared it with you.
Mrs. Claus, let's just stick to your comments. No
Okay,
bigger
well,
back and forth.
I cleared it with you twice. I'm not going to clear it with you again. If you don't understand it or get it, that's not my fault. I have no more comments.
Thank you. Mrs. Downing.
I have no comments, actually. I just want to just tell the public about the graduates of the month that Donna started several years ago. That if you know of someone that you would really like to see highlighted that graduated from Lacey, contact us, because it's a great recognition for those who have graduated from Lacey and have moved on and done great things. And that's all I have to say. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Polino.
you, Mrs. Downing. Mrs. McAvoy.
Hi, yes. I want to say thank you. I'm so happy that we're having an in-person meeting. Not as many came out, but I'm happy Mr. Polino made it happen, that we could have Mr. Armato at the meeting and join us. I'm looking forward next month to having Mason and Alexis back on the dais with us. I really feel badly that they are this SGA representative and the senior of the month, and they have not been able to be with us. I know when they ran for election last year, this was something they were looking forward to. So I feel like we're taking this away from us. I am actually proud of the board members for following the mask mandate. I think we are standing tall. We are sticking together. We are following the mandate. I know many people in the community are not in agreement. However, the people I know, the small amount of people I know in Lacey Township have told us that they respect us and they are proud of us for following a mandate. And many of the parents have said, thank you for keeping our children safe. Thank you. We have sick people at home. We have sick elder people. We think we are going by the science out there, the people that we have elected, even though some people might not agree who has been elected, are saying at the mass help, maybe even 1%. If we could save one person, we need as a community to stop focusing on masks. We need to get back. We have to focus on the curriculum, the budget, the social emotional learning, after school activities for these students. And we can't keep focusing on masks. We need to come together. Gavin, Rossi, I want to thank you for acknowledging Mr. DeGeorge. All these Oprah requests are taking so much time out of him doing his job as the business administrator and the board secretary. So Gavin, I really, really compliment you for thanking Mr. DeGeorge, because you know how much time it is. And for everyone that spoke, thank you. Unfortunately, none of us are going to resign. I'm speaking on behalf of everyone. We're here for the children and we believe in the children. Thank you, Mr. Polino.
Thank you, Mrs. McAvoy. Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. I first, very briefly, one of the comments we didn't talk about earlier, we are still actively negotiating with the LTEA, and hopefully we'll have some progress to report one of these meetings. One of the comments that was made tonight, and I just want to go on record clearly stating that if and when, and I'm not going to say if, when the mask mandate is lifted and there's no more requirement for masks, I would never vote to continue to require masks. But I would say that if someone wants to voluntarily wear a mask at that point, they can. But there would be no requirement if it wasn't a mandate. That would be my stance. Thank you.
You're all done, sir?
Yep. I'm done. Thank you.
People are very short spoken tonight. So it's my turn. So first, I want to thank Mr. Lytle, Mr. Merman for getting this virtual / in-person meeting off the ground. I want to thank our staff at the middle school for helping us with the setup. I want to thank our Lacey Police Department, who's always been here to be that thin blue line between peace and chaos. And I want to thank them. But I do want to address a couple things. So let's start with, again, and I said it before, this whole mask mandate thing, we are following the law, okay? And whether you believe the mandate is a law, whether you don't, okay, it is. So you folks out there, whether you vote, you don't vote, or who you voted for, you have representation. And that is the people that you need to go to. So find your legislatures and stand at their door and scream and yell at them like you do with us, some of you, okay? That's how things are going to get changed. Not by standing at a board of education and telling us how we're taking away your civil liberties. We're not taking away anything. This has to do with people hired in our pay grade. And we don't get paid anything for this. So everybody's above us. Okay? So what I see here are a group of parents that come here and tell us we're taking away the civil liberties and we're harming their children, we're doing this and we're doing that and stuff like that. And we need to move this off site because we don't want to wear a mask and you're not doing the right thing. Well, why is it that we, those of us that wear masks, have to have your beliefs imposed upon us and change what we're doing because you don't want to follow? Okay, so let's revert back to that. So just because you don't want it, you want us to believe what you want to believe. Well, we don't always believe what you want to believe. And that's okay that we agree to disagree. But don't stand up there and pound you kick your feet around and pound your hands saying resign because you're not doing the right thing. No, maybe you're not doing the right thing. You're not following the law. So let me talk about the charges. First of all, these charges I placed against certain individuals, and Mr. Amado's one, is by me, citizen Frank Polino. Has nothing to do with this Board of Education. It just so happens that I had to be sitting here at the time that it occurred. I am not spending board or township or taxpayer money to go through with these charges. This is on my dime. This is on my time. And I will probably have to give up work to go to court. And you know what? I will. And you want to stand there and say how I intimidate you and how I'm bullying you and how I'm harassing you. Well, you know what? If you did the right thing, you wouldn't feel that way. And I'm not calling anybody out individually at meetings as people are sending emails saying I'm doing. I'm not calling out people. I promised at that meeting a week or so ago that if I could identify you and you're violating the law, I will charge you. So you're just asked to come to this meeting if you choose to for an hour to wear your mask. That's your choice. You don't want to do it. So, Mr. Amato, I'm going to address you. I spoke to you on the phone, and I'm the one that says, you know, please wear a mask for the greater of the good. And you just said the greater good of what? I can't believe you said that as a board member. Nothing comes to your mind? The greater good of the children of the school. Obviously, you're a selfish individual. All this time that we've had to cancel our meetings, we've had to take 2 nights more out of our time. And the children who came here that want to get their awards could not get their awards on the month that they were supposed to receive them because of your selfish action again. And the actions of your family, the actions of whatever people that follow you. And I know you say you're not Jesus Christ or the Messiah, like you told me, but these people follow you because they believe in you. And that's a good thing because we also have people that believe in us and follow us. But if you can't think of a greater good than other than yourself, you don't belong here. And nobody's trying to get rid of you. And the fact of the matter is, I told you why you're not on committees. I guess you have yet to tell the people why you're not on a committee. You want to know why Sal Amato is not on a committee? Because Sal Amato doesn't want to wear a mask when he goes into a school building. I don't have time to play daddy dearest to follow Sal Amato around during the day when he shows up at our school buildings to attend a meeting that whether we know he's going to wear a mask or not. And it's not the job of the superintendent or business administrator, who Mr. Amato is the boss of, the superintendent, for them to confront him and force him to put a mask on. Well, let me tell you about Mr. Amato, the Messiah that you believe that he is. Okay, he's a little bit of a hypocrite. So he stands there saying how he's doing what he believes is right, how he's fighting for this and he's fighting for that, and the good of the will of the children. Well, why don't you ask about Mr. Amato, who's been to the board district building a couple of times, and to benefit him, he put a mask on and he paraded around the board office. Did you forget? Did he forget to tell you about that? So whenever it benefits Mr. Amato,
Liar.
he will do what benefits him. It benefited him to go there to sign his oath of office, which he has valiantly broken. And he put his hand on the Bible to say that he would swear to follow the Constitution. Wrong. It benefited him to go there to sit and have a meeting about coming onto the board. Okay. And it benefits him now to cancel the meetings so he could sit home and be safe. But yet our children and our parents who deserve to get their awards are not getting them because of Mr. Amato and his followers. And yes, they're your followers. So let's be perfectly clear on this, Mr. Amato. You're a hypocrite and you care about nobody but yourself. You sit there and you act as though you're so righteous and you believe your God is going to be the one to judge you. Well, you know what? All of us too. I put my head on that pillow every night and I am proud of what I've done here. and the amount of hours I spend and the amount of hours these board members spend, and people in that public stand out there and say to us, you don't care for our children. You know what? I may not have kids in the school. I spend 10 hours a week in meetings, plus more meetings, and Mr. Amato don't want to wear a mask for an hour. And I'm on the phone all day long. So you tell me I don't care about your children, and I'm telling you you're dead wrong. So you know what? I'm not in favor of moving our meetings off campus. This is the kids' home. This is where they belong to get their awards. They shouldn't have to go because you, Mr. Amato, and your friends don't want to wear a mask for an hour. Too bad. Don't show up then. Leave the kids alone. There's the greater good, and that's the kids, not you. So with that, I close public comments, board comments. New business, resolutions. Okay, so new business, we're doing through 1 through 21. First one is number 1, resolution concerning hybrid meetings of the Board of Education while the indoor school mask requirement pursuant to Executive Orders 251 and 281 remains in effect. Do I have a motion?
Move.
Second, do I have discussion? I hear no discussion. So, Mr. George.
Mr. Amato,
I'm against it.
so that's a no, sir? Mrs. Claus,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy,
Yes.
Mrs. Downing,
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon,
Yeah.
Mr. Polino.
Yes. And we are at number 2, minutes. Move that the board approve the minutes from the following meetings.
Moved by Ms. McAvoy.
Move, Ms. McAvoy, second by who, Ms.
Mrs.
Downing?
Downing.
Discussion? None. So go ahead, Mr. DeGeorge.
Mr. Armato,
Yes.
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy,
Yes.
Mrs. Downing,
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon.
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes. Just, go ahead. You-
Mr. Armato, I recommend you change your vote to abstain on the December meetings when you were not on the board,
I'm sorry, I abstain.
but you could vote yes on the January 12th if that's your preference.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amato. Number 3, list of bills. Motion? Who did that?
I'll
Mrs.
second.
McAvoy.
McAvoy and Claus.
Claus, yes.
Discussion? Seeing none. Go ahead, Mr. DeGeorge.
Mr. Armato,
Yes.
sir, can I entice you to abstain
Yep.
from the bill for your fingerprinting?
Again, you did give me a warning, so I abstain. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mrs. Claus,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes, I can abstain on A2 and A3, please.
I'm sorry, can you say that once again?
I'm going to abstain on A2. 173251.
Yeah, okay, right. Yes, thank you. Mrs. McAvoy,
Yes.
Mrs. Downing,
I'm going to abstain on bill number 950460. Yes on the rest.
thank you. Mr. Scanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes. Number 4, budget transfers. Move the board following budget transfer 21 to 22 school year. Motion.
Move.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. George.
Mr. Armato,
Good.
Mrs. Claus,
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Sir, can I ask you to abstain from the
Oh,
transfer? 10?
A3, I'm sorry. Yes, I'll abstain.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon.
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes. 5 through 14.
Move.
Motion to move by Mrs.
Second.
Second by Mr. Scanlon. Discussion.
Hold on
Hold on a second. What we got?
Yes. I have discussion on number 11.
Discussion on number 11, which is
Food increase.
the food increase.
But I have a concern with the milk and the yogurt. Why are we raising price on the healthy stuff? The Christmas
Well-
treats, the mini treats, I can understand, but
You know, the kids want to eat healthy, we're raising prices on that. That's
No,
my,
yeah, I know, I understand. That is one of the, one of the items that we're losing money on. We're selling. for
I can't
more.
hear you, Mr. George. Can you repeat that, please?
Sure, we are losing money on those items as well. Those are ones we are purchasing at a price greater than we're selling them.
So we're just gonna break even or we're making a profit with that price?
2 pennies.
All right.
But did you say that, but we're purchasing lower than what we're selling?
Yes. I mean,
Oh,
higher.
higher, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
right. Yeah, I think that's it. I hope we did.
Any other discussion? George?
Mr. Armato,
Yes.
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes, except number 11.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing,
Yes, I'm going to vote no on number 11.
Mr. Scanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes. Facilities, number 15 on your agenda.
Move.
Motion to move by Mrs. McAvoy, second.
Second, Peters.
Mrs. Downing.
Ms. Downing got it?
Yeah.
Discussion on facilities, number 15, any? Seeing none, Mr. George?
Mr. Armato,
Yes.
Mrs. Claus,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing,
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Peters, Mr. Polino, sorry.
Yes, we look the same.
Yep. Mm.
17, so do you. 17 and 18.
I don't think we did 16.
Oh, we didn't do 16? Oh, I'm
16.
sorry. I would
Okay.
jump right over that. Thank you. 16, tuition and transportation.
Move.
So out of district bus routes for the 21-22 regular school year. Motion by McAvoy, second.
Mrs. Downing,
Ms. Downing again, thank you. Discussion? Mr. DeGeorge?
Mr. Armato,
Yes.
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing,
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon,
Yes.
Polino.
Yes. 17 through 18, school self-assessment determining grades under the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act. And you just-
Second.
Okay, and the other one is the Lacey Township School District Health and Safety Guidance. Moved and seconded, discussion? You got who you're at that, Mr. George, right?
Yes, Downing, McAvoy.
Thank you. Any discussion? 17, 18? Seeing none, Mr. George?
Mr. Armato,
Yes.
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing,
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon.
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes. 19, it's going to be policies and regulations, second read bylaws, policies, regulations, move the board, approve the second reading adoption of the following bylaws, policies and regulations. Motion? Move Mrs.
McAvoy.
McAvoy, second.
Peters.
Peters. Any discussion on number 19? No discussion. Mr. DeGeorge?
Mr. Armato,
Yes.
Mrs. Claus,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing,
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes. 20 through 21, harassment, intimidation, bullying, and so that's the same. So motion, Mrs. Downing,
Mrs. McAvoy.
Ms. McAvoy again. We have to separate you two. We can't understand you. Second,
I'll second.
thank you. Discussion on 2021.
Mr. Amato, I don't think you can vote on this. You have to abstain.
I
December's
abstain.
report
Well, so Mr. Peters, what are you asking him to do?
on number 21. It's December's report. I'm just trying to help out Mr. Amato.
I appreciate that. But just let me know so I
Yeah,
can.
I just saw it now. I know he
All
can't
right,
vote.
so you say, hey, Mr. President. you can't
Mr.
do this.
President.
Thank you. So I know what's going on. Don't be running another meeting down there by yourself, Mr. Peters, okay?
I'm good at that.
Greatly appreciate it. Okay, so motion, we got a second, yes?
Yes, Mrs. Claus.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Claus. Any other discussion? All right, go ahead, Mr. DeGeorge.
Mr. Armato,
I abstain.
from
Good
both?
choice.
From both?
20 and 21.
Okay, I'm gonna put you for both. Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing,
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes. Okay, moving on to donations. B, Move the board approve the following accepted generous donations. Motion.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Oh, I have a question. Forked River Butcher, is that the German butcher? Okay.
Yeah, that's what he's called, I guess officially.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You ready, sir?
Yes.
Mr. Armato,
Yes.
Mrs. Claus,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing,
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes. C, programs and curriculum. Move.
I'll
Mrs. Downing,
second.
Ms. Downing, second?
yes.
Yes. Second?
Yes, second.
Ms. Claus.
Claus.
Any discussion on C, programs and curriculum? Seeing none. Mr. DeGeorge.
Mr. Armato,
Yes.
Mrs. Claus,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing,
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes. D, professional days, workshops. Move the board approve the following professional day to workshops for the following individuals. Motion.
Move.
Ms. McAvoy, second.
I'll second.
Ms. Claus. Any discussion on professional days? D. None. Mr. DeGeorge.
Mr. Armato,
Yes.
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing,
I'm going to abstain on the two for Timothy Dowd and the one with Vanessa Clark due to perceived conflict.
everything else is a yes, ma'am?
Everything else is a yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes. E, certificated personnel. Move that the following board, move that the board approve the following retirements.
Move.
Move second.
Peters.
Peters. Any discussion?
Congratulations.
We didn't get there yet.
This is all of them, 1 to 9?
Through 9.
Yes, 1 through 9.
They're not right.
1 through 9, yes. Any discussion? All right, Mr. George.
Mr. Armato,
Yes.
Mrs. Claus,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes, and congratulations.
There you go.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes, congratulations to Mrs. DeShero and Mr. Wyman. Very well-deserved retirements.
Mrs. Downing,
Yes, and I agree with Mrs. McAvoy.
Mr. Scanlon,
Yes, correct. Congratulations.
Mr. Polino.
Yes, congratulations. Okay, F, non-certificated personnel 1 through 9. Any motion?
I'll make that
F,
move.
Non-certificated.
sorry. Mrs. Downing,
I'll second.
Mrs. Claus.
We got 1 and 2?
Yes, we do. Mrs.
Thank
Downing,
you. Any
Mrs.
discussion on F, non-certificated personnel?
Yes, as finance chairperson, I would like the board members to please look at page 14 at the top where it says TBD. There are 6 spots to be determined. We are hiring back full-time health office clerical assistants at all 6 of the schools. The amount that you see in this agenda is not the amount that these health aides will be making. This is just a placeholder where we will identify the 6 individuals that will get hired for this spot. And these 6 individuals will be placed on the appropriate step as according to the LTEA contract. So I just wanted everyone to be aware of that this amount is just a placeholder. Thank you, Mr. Plino.
Thank
Can I
you,
ask
Ms.
a question?
McAvoy. Sure, go ahead.
That mean that's just an open requisition, that this is like if you're looking for a job, this will be open on the website? Or do we have
Miss-
people?
Can I answer?
Yeah, go
Mr.
ahead.
Plino?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Mr. Amato, this job was already posted a couple weeks ago and the postings have ended. So at this point, they are in the process of hiring and Dr. Clark and Mr. Zelinski will let the board know as soon as the positions are filled. So yes, it's an open because we need these people to start as soon as possible. The nurses really need the extra help full time.
Mhm. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion on this? Motion.
We had that already.
Motion, Peter.
No,
We
we
have-
did Downing and
Oh, I'm sorry. We have a discussion. Yeah. So let's go ahead, Mr. George, you're up.
Mr. Armato,
Yes.
Mrs. Claus.
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Mrs. McAvoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing,
Yes.
Mr. Scanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Polino.
Yes. And do we have any walk-ons?
I have nothing.
Nothing. Does anybody really want to get out of here?
Yes,
Make a
yes,
motion to
motion,
adjourn.
second, third.
All in favor?
fourth.